All right. Looks like we're back for day 2, first full day of testimony in the Darrell Brooks trial. It's 7:25 here in Utah, 8:26 in Wisconsin now. So last night the judge instructed the parties to be back at 8:30. So we're looking at just a couple minutes until we should hopefully get started. The jury should be in at 9 o'clock to start testimony, so half hour of housekeeping. Although with Mr. Brooks, it could very well be 2 hours of housekeeping because that's just the way he rolls. And apparently this morning, my microphone has decided it wants to be noisier than it was. So hopefully, as we get going, I can figure that out. And as a quick recap, yesterday was a mess. The housekeeping took all morning, although I say housekeeping, it was also reading the jury instructions. But they didn't get to the opening statement from the prosecution until I believe it was 3:30 Wisconsin time. It was the youngest prosecutor, 7 years experience, the man, and he did a marvelous job. He was excellent, and it was heartbreaking. It was hard to watch. And then Mr. Brooks deferred his opening until after the prosecution rests its case and before he starts presenting his case, which was actually a smart move on his behalf since he fired his attorneys last week, so he hasn't had time to prepare for anything. And then, due to scheduling issues, they did have 2 witnesses give their testimony late in the day. The first was the police sergeant. He was a great witness. It was hard to listen to. He was very emotional, and understandably so. And Brooks cross-examined him on standard sovereign citizen. Who's the plaintiff? Do you know the plaintiff? Which the state of Wisconsin is the plaintiff, and so he's trying to determine who is the state of Wisconsin. Can you bring the state of Wisconsin into the courtroom? And then the second witness was his ex-girlfriend's former roommate, who witnessed him trying to run her down and assault her right before running into the parade. And she was obviously a first-time witness. I thought she did a pretty good job. Mr. Brooks fell into a feedback loop on cross-examination of that didn't help him because he kept giving her more and more opportunities to say, yes, you pushed me. Yes, you threatened to kill her. Yes, you did this. And you don't want to give a witness multiple opportunities to condemn you. But he doesn't have an attorney. He's a sovereign citizen. And then he finished with his feedback loop of, do you know the plaintiff? And it was objected to. The objection was upheld, and rightfully so, both with the sergeant and with the second witness. So now we have a full day, hopefully, of testimony. And when I say full day, I hope it doesn't go until almost 7 Milwaukee time. Yesterday was a long day. I never realized I can watch YouTube for 9 hours in a day just fine, but streaming for 9 hours in a day is exhausting. I wouldn't have realized just how exhausting it can be. But I'm up. I'm back this morning. And I'm glad that it's Friday. Very glad it's Friday. And the court's late. How dare they? Don't they know that I'm streaming? Don't they know that I'm waiting for them? I mean, I'm kind of a big deal. All 331 subscribers. I mean, that's the big time. And of course, that is self-deprecation. I would hope most people would realize that, but there are people with delusions of grandeur out there, so I wouldn't put it past anyone. And I'm curious, during jury selection, Monday and Tuesday this week, Mr. Brooks was in a suit, but he was not in the courtroom. Oh, it looks like they're present now. And I was going to say yesterday, Mr. Brooks was in the
calling state versus
his orange jumpsuit and said
21
he was going to stay in the.
I have the state appearing by District Attorney Sue Opper, Deputy
I'm having funny audio issues.
District Attorney Leslie Basie, Assistant District Attorney Zach Wichow.
Okay.
And I have the defendant Darrell Brooks appearing in person.
Okay, I don't know what's going on.
In a little bit later today, so I'm not. But they usually come early, so I'm not sure if they're here. But I did want to make sure and ask if there's anything the parties wished me to address this morning. I don't believe there's been any new filings. I haven't seen any, but I did want to ask.
From the state, we would just like to make a record with regard to the concern Mr. Brooks had yesterday about the juror that he believed he recognized from his initial appearance that may have made some type of hand gesture to him. I did not, unfortunately, write down the juror number. I know what the juror looks like, but I couldn't associate it on my chart. Do you recall the juror number?
They didn't figure out the juror number at the time.
I think I know what it is, but
Okay.
I don't want to be correct on that. But we can have the civilian bailiff provide us with that information.
I don't know if we want to do have that juror come out just to confirm. I know that the juror told the civilian bailiff who informed the court. Our concern is we certainly don't
I think
want
the stream
Mr. Brooks to
audio
keep
is
raising
cutting out,
issues with regard to specific
but
jurors.
that might be mine.
And, we start using those alternates up. So I guess I'd prefer to be on the record that that juror was not at the initial appearance. I know that
Or it's the
three of us
battery
were at
in
the
my
initial appearance. There
headphones.
was an older woman who did, I ended up talking to her during the proceeding. She was not the juror that was described yesterday or that I saw yesterday with the clothes that Mr. Brooks indicated she was wearing. So I just really would like that to be put on the record that that juror, in fact, was not at the initial appearance, and have her come in, provide her name, and do that. Or the juror number, not her name, her juror.
So my understanding is that following what Mr. Brooks described happening at the initial appearance, there was a woman that one of the deputies spoke with and warned her. It's my understanding that woman may have been in the gallery on Monday and was warned about behavior then. I have issued an order. She is not allowed back in these proceedings because of that. I believe we know her identity.
Gotta
And I
keep
can tell you with
court
certainty it is
decorum.
not our juror. So, and if there's anything else, any other requests, I don't think it's necessary to bring that juror out, given that record. But I will certainly do that if the state feels, or Mr. Brooks, that that's important for their understanding or confirmation at this point.
Yeah, and I think what would be important is to note if her pool number is the first 41. Mr. Brooks actually was in court on day one of jury selection. I know for a fact. I'm in looking at my notes. It's unclear to me if he was present at any time in day two of jury selection. I know he was in day one. So his claim that he was unable to see the juror at the time, obviously if it's a juror from day one, he was able to see her because he was in court with her. So that would also be something.
All right, hopefully the new battery
Establish
helps
that she was part of the
me
first
hear
41.
better.
Then I think the record is clear that the defendant was in court when the first 41 were brought out, and therefore he could have objected at that time.
I will get confirmation of the number.
He waived being present at voir dire, so
we'll go from there.
that's his fault.
Request as relates to that, Mr. Brooks.
Before I get to that whole issue, Your Honor, if I may, I would like to state for the record, and would like the record to reflect that I personally don't identify by that name. I am here as a third-party intervener.
Yep, more sovereign
in that matter,
citizen
appearing as an
nonsense.
authorized representative for my client. I accept for value
A
and
third-party
return for value
intervener
all the charging
would be in a
instruments
civil
in this
case
matter, and make my
if-
attention available for discharge of all obligations
let's
and charges
say-
connected with this case. I do not dispute any of the facts in the charging.
The
instrument.
most famous was the California gay marriage case
Right, as to
from
the issue of the juror.
I think 2012. I can't remember what it was called.
As
But
far as the issue of the
the
juror,
state did not defend the case
I
when they
was
were sued.
maybe briefly,
And so a
present
third party
when the
intervened to defend the
jurors
case
were
for the
brought
state
in. I didn't recall
and
really
lost.
being in here long
And
enough
so
to
gay
really
marriage was
get a look at
approved in
jurors
California.
because I was removed at that time.
It's not a thing,
either
though.
they were coming in
in
or
criminal
shortly after they
cases.
were brought in. I was removed. I definitely was not present.
But
for
Brooks
the
thinks
second
he
and
can
third when I was
bifurcate
in the other
his
courtroom.
physical
So it
entity
was-
from
I can't
a
see
straw man.
the
So
jurors from the other
that's just
courtroom on the monitor.
sovereign
So
citizen nonsense.
it wouldn't possibly be that I would have seen the juror that I was
morning.
referring to yesterday.
Understanding that that may very well be true. My recollection is you were removed pretty quickly.
It is a bit
You
early
were
for
in
this,
Early on, I
but
don't
it's
have my
also
notes in front of me as to
the
when
right
you were
time to
brought
do
in
it
or
before the
not.
jury's in.
But I am advising you that
And good
I was
morning
able
to
to
you,
confirm
Empty Woods, and
with
welcome.
others,
You're new to
including
the
law
stream, at
enforcement,
least to the
that,
live stream commentary.
the juror
Uh,
that you suspected. was
Static
the
joked yesterday
woman who
that
made
we
an
were going to
inappropriate gesture.
double every day until
Gesture
a million a
toward you
month
at the
from
initial
now.
appearance.
So
They are not the same individual.
you're helping the trend.
I've
So
been
thank you.
able to confirm that. I know the identity of the woman who did what you said, and it is not this juror.
He
Is there
claims that a
any
juror
way
flipped
that
him
I can
off
be sure of that?
before being on the jury, but the judge says
Do you
it was a
want to
random
have
person in
juror- I
court.
think it might be 41. I don't want to guess. But I can bring that juror out when the jurors get here, and we
I
can have
agree,
her
But the
under
cows
oath
need to be fed.
testify that she was not at your initial appearance or any of the proceedings in this case.
That would
I'm able to do that.
be helpful, Your Honor.
All right. Can we check to see where they're at and if they're here? And if so, to have that juror brought out.
I think we could use P. Barnes in this proceeding occasionally. I think he does have a.
Probably best we have a record
shock.
of that juror number with specificity.
I
in
I
any
don't.
event.
I think it's a shock cuff on his ankle.
Obviously, we may know that there's one.
They tend to do that
person
with
initial appearance who made a hand gesture.
defendants
I just
in
wanted on the record
custody.
that if there was a second person,
so
it's
that they're
the
not
juror that's
shackled.
impaneled in this case.
I'm not aware of another.
And
Nor am I.
as amusing as P. Barnes is, or Lieutenant Cochran, who pulled down the sovereign citizen's window with his bare hands, or Officer Murphy there in New Jersey, the I smell weed. They're amusing. It's fun to laugh at sovereign citizens getting owned in low-level things, but
I'm not interrupting.
it
that,
is
Captain.
important to realize
Um,
Give me 1 second.
they are, or at least have the potential to be, very dangerous. And this case really demonstrates that.
The juror will be out momentarily. Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
I would like to state for the record, the prosecution seems to be saying this with firsthand knowledge.
You referring to the issue we're talking about right now?
Correct, Your Honor.
The prosecution was there
Is
at
there a
the
question to that, or
preliminary
I'm not understanding
appearance.
why you're raising that at this moment.
Well, I'm raising it because the prosecution said that, and they stated that they knew for a fact that this juror is not the juror that I'm speaking of.
I said that.
Well, the prosecution said it too, Your Honor.
I provided the information, said I've been able to confirm the identity of the person who made an inappropriate gesture to you.
And
your
has
initial
barred
appearance.
that person
And
from
then based
returning
upon
to the court.
Formal questioning of the
It wasn't a
that you
juror.
Suspected was that, determined their confirmed that she was not that individual, and then subsequent to confirming that informal information, I was able to do some additional questioning of law enforcement and others to determine the identity of that other person and confirm, in fact, that what you said happened, but it's not this juror. But we're going to bring that juror out just so you can, or I will, question her about that. So there's a very clear record that your concern and whether one of the jurors on this panel was at your initial appearance and made an inappropriate gesture.
They really
can
are
be,
going
um,
over and
put
above to
bed
make
once
sure
and for
this
all, so
doesn't
that
get
you're
overturned on
satisfied they are
appeal.
two different people, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Creating a full record of everything they
Just consider the
possibly
jury box.
can.
She's a juror. She's not a, she may
That-
be put under oath and question, but she's a juror, and so no one.
They're
can
just
film her,
fantastic.
Take her photograph.
I really like the judge. I really like the
Go ahead. She can just sit
prosecution.
in one of the spots in the jury box.
And as I was
Good
saying,
morning. You can have a
this
seat. I just
first
wanna put on
thing,
the record,
the
this is
witnesses
juror number
yesterday were excellent too
41,
yesterday.
And you are not in trouble. We just have had an issue come up and we wanted to make sure we all had accurate information. At any point in time, did you attend any of the proceedings in this matter regarding Mr. Brooks? Were you ever at the initial appearance for Mr. Brooks? All right. State have any follow-up based on that?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks, any follow-up based on what I've asked this witness?
Don't
Or
do
what
it.
I've asked this juror.
Don't
Sorry.
do it.
No.
All right, thank you.
Smart
Thank you so
decision
much.
on his part.
And I'm gonna wait.
He
till,
can learn.
She's back out of the courtroom because there's a hallway behind me, and then ask a follow-up. Are they gone? Mr. Brooks, we brought out juror number 41. Was that the same juror that you initially suspected was someone who was at your initial appearance?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And again, she denied. She said she told us she wasn't there. And I trust that satisfies your inquiry into this issue.
I'm still a little leery, but
Well, do you
Okay,
have
I say
evidence?
that. I'm not interrupting, am I?
go ahead.
I say that because I don't forget faces. I don't.
All right, I understand what you're saying, but the record is made clear, and I'll make a finding that juror number 41 was not at your initial appearance and is not the person who made an inappropriate gesture to you either at or following that hearing. All right, then any other issues from the state?
Yes, Judge, just briefly, a few. From yesterday's testimony, we'd like to move into evidence Exhibit 1, which was the map. Exhibit 3, which was the video played during Corey Runkle's testimony. And Exhibit 5, which is the photograph of Erica Patterson.
I thought those were already
Were all
admitted.
testified to yesterday.
Any objection, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
He objects to
I
everything.
guess it would be to the terms of relevancy. There's been
Knowing the parade
testimony
route
from
was highly relevant.
Miss Patterson.
Seeing
So I'm
his
just
victim's black eye
Curious to
was
know the
highly
relevancy of that
relevant.
DNA evidence at this point in time, because from what was said yesterday was that she would be testifying at some point. Would it not be better to have that admitted then if she decides to testify instead of right now when we're not even sure if she is going to testify?
Oh, they're sure.
Your objections
She's on the
are
witness
noted
list.
for the record. There was a proper foundation laid regarding each one of these exhibits. They also are relevant to the issues within this trial, and I'll admit exhibits 1, 3, and 5, and also advise the jury when they come back into court.
I really hope he read up on
I'm not interrupting, am I?
hearsay
Hold on, I'm
last
not,
night
to you yet, if there are any issues, any other issues.
because
from
he
the
was
state.
constantly
Yes, Your Honor, I
objecting
would
for
just like the
hearsay.
record to
and
indicate that
none of
I
it was
understand
hearsay.
We did not follow up with this after the lunch break on the record, but it was my understanding that Mr. Brooks did receive the medical attention that he was seeking over the lunch hour. So I just wanted.
He
that
had a
on the
little
record.
boo-boo on his finger.
And then finally, Your Honor,
He thought it should delay
just
the
a
trial.
reminder to Mr. Brooks as to the other acts evidence. In line with his questioning of Corey Runkle yesterday, Erica Patterson will be testifying here this morning. The court issued a ruling as to the other acts evidence. The state strictly abided by that. Mr. Brooks came very close several times to opening the door to that testimony.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Treaded very lightly on purpose to be respectful.
Both the
of court's
judge
ruling,
and the
but
witness
the court warned him twice.
stopped
Mr.
him
Witchow even
and the
personally went
prosecutor
over and warned Mr.
showed
Brooks
him
during Miss Runkle's
the motion in
testimony.
limine.
And before we start another round
When the
of,
prosecution helps the defense,
challenges, potentially,
you know it's
during
a
Ms.
lost
Patterson's
cause.
testimony, we just wanted to make a record of that so that Mr. Brooks knows if he opens the door to that other act's testimony, it will come in.
And I appreciate the state raising that as well. Mr. Brooks, on the issue of medical attention, did you see the jail nurse or other medical personnel during the lunch hour yesterday?
Yes, I did. I received a cleaning of my cut and a bandage.
And he's still in orange, so I'm assuming
All right, thank
his
you.
plague
Oh,
test
I'm
hasn't
sorry,
come back yet.
I was getting to
Because for some reason he can't wear a suit until he has a clean bill of
view the
health.
bruises that I have on my arm and legs as well.
Oh, on
I
his
don't know what's
legs
gonna happen
now.
Behind that, but
That's the first we've heard about bruises on his legs.
All right, thank you. Does not appear to me that any of these injuries are interfering in any way with your ability to
Yep.
be here today and assist in your own defense. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm just a little tender, just a little sore. So
Oh,
All right. Mr. Brooks, do you understand what the state is referencing as it relates to the other act's evidence?
I do not understand.
Do you recall being in court at the end of
Ask him if he
August when the court
comprehends.
addressed a number
Understand
of
as
motions,
sovereign
including a
citizen
motion
nonsense.
brought by the state to admit other acts?
And with all respect, Your Honor, this whole process is very, very new to me.
You should have kept your
So
attorney.
I'm trying to
This is a you
guess-
problem.
stay within bounds of the questions that I'm allowed to ask. If
I mean, you can open the
not
door
color
to
outside
anything
the
you
line, so
want.
to speak, it is not intentionally, because I'm basically learning as I go.
It's your
So I'm gonna
attorneys
have
that
my
got this
clerk print out the
excluded.
motion
The
for other
prosecution
acts that
can't
was filed
ask
by
about
the
it unless
state,
you
along
open the
with
door.
Response that was filed by your attorneys at that time, and further advise you the court did not grant the state's request to admit other acts as it relates to your conduct with Erica Patterson prior to November 21 of 2021. And
I assume the court
your
audio is coming
questions
through.
yesterday
I'm not
of
having
Ms.
yesterday's
Runkle,
issues.
could have opened the door to the court revisiting that issue. That's why the court stopped.
They had to stop him
It's interesting, Ms.
twice.
Runkle clearly was advised not to talk about other acts. The state followed the requirement that they advise their witnesses about the court's order as it relates to other acts. And
I really think the
I
state's done a good job
believe
preparing
I-
witnesses.
kind of paused twice and said, "Are you sure you want to answer that?" I referenced generally some prior rulings so as not to alert
Thank you.
the jury to anything more than that. And then at one point, Attorney Wichow also came over, muted your microphone. I don't know what was said, but my understanding is he basically kind of gave you the same caution. There's a ruling, something to that effect. And I know you didn't proceed with the questions that you had originally attempted to ask this witness. So it's very clear what we're talking about. Again, I'm going to give you these filings so that you understand what I prohibited in this trial. And the record should reflect those filings are being provided. Madam Clerk, do you happen to have the document numbers for those? Sorry, I should.
170.
Document 170. And 161. 161. So documents 170, 161 were provided to Mr. Brooks. So the only other thing I'll say on that, sir, is if you ask questions, I'm not going, that would open up the door potentially, or at least ask questions that call for answers that might fall within that order that I issued. You do that at your own peril, and you may open the door to the state bringing in other witnesses and other testimony about those issues. So I want you to be advised of that. You are correct that when the state made the request, I prohibited the state from introducing that evidence. So you're
But
not
you
incorrect when
can.
you say I didn't, when you kind of referenced about there's a difference between me prohibiting you and prohibiting the state. But from my perspective, the order that I issued,
There
was
might
to
be
your
things that he
benefit.
is prevented
And so
from
you can
bringing
ask
up.
those questions.
I don't know if
You're
the
not
state has
prohibited,
any
but then you
motions in limine that
potentially
were
open the
granted
door
to
to that
exclude
information becoming
evidence.
admissible in this case. So I want you to be advised of that.
May I quick, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
I would just like to say that I accept for value in return for value these filings. I do believe that
This is nonsense.
I have a little bit more clarity.
Sovereign citizens are.
If that helps.
They're ridiculous.
Thank you for putting that on the record. Do you have any other issues you want me to address?
Just very, very quick. I still don't understand the nature and cause of the charges against me, Your Honor, and I still would
It's been explained very
motion
clearly.
for or tennis motion for the jurisdiction to be proven, the subject matter jurisdiction,
The state has subject matter jurisdiction.
and also
They
motion for finding a fact.
motion for finding a fact.
Your
What?
requests are all noted
What-
for the record and for the reasons previously stated on this record. I'm not going to answer those requests any further. They've already been denied by the court. I'd point you to the case of
I'd be sanctioned if I brought this up over and over and
the
over and
Beneby
over.
decision at 654 F 3rd 753. All right. Anything else, sir?
I'm not interrupting, am I?
I'm asking
She
you a
asked
question.
you,
Just for the record, Your
but it
Honor,
shows he is
I'd like the
learning.
record to reflect. Is that a judicial determination that you are making?
Yes, everything she does is judicial.
Your Honor,
I'm
your-
sure
Mr.
I
Brooks, the
sound
record
great
speaks
on the
for
fast
itself.
playback.
I've made my decision. We're moving on. All right. With that, then, state have a witness available to be called.
We do. Would you also just make a record, Your Honor, this morning that Mr. Brooks does appear again in his orange jail uniform? And that
Dotting
he
their
was
eyes
offered
and
the
crossing
ability
their
to Wear
Ts.
street clothes and decline that offer. Also, he does have.
Wearing the orange
appear-
jumpsuit is
appear to have all
prejudicial
his
to the
discovery
jury.
materials at the table with him.
Yes, thank you. I should make a
But
record
it's
of
his
that
fault.
as well. I didn't state at the outset, Mr. Brooks is here in person and in custody. He once again has come to the courtroom in jail attire. I presume, Mr. Brooks, but please confirm for me, you were offered the opportunity
I need to get more used to fast
change
playback
into street clothes.
in my personal.
As I stated on the
Watching
record
YouTube.
yesterday, I'm waiting for the results.
If I miss the start of a
test that I
live
took.
stream, I tend to just
So until I get
wait until the
those
playback,
results
'cause
back,
I-
would prefer
I don't like being behind. I
to not
like
wear
watching
street
it
clothes
all at
at
once.
this time.
All right, can you confirm?
I
for
should
me,
just
though,
start
that you were
doing the fast
provided an
playback to
opportunity
get caught
change
up.
into them if you so chose?
and not to my knowledge.
Sir, I'm providing you with that opportunity right now. If you would like to change into your street clothes, into the suit and tie that you
But
had
he
previously, or
objects.
any other street clothes, I would give you that opportunity. Did you hear me advise you of that just now?
I might consider it. Maybe I may have more information.
That's
from the medical
non-responsive.
staff once we take a break, or maybe at.
You should do it
Anticipating-
before the jury comes in.
Well, actually, I
They'll be
anticipated that I would
confused.
know before we even started court.
They'll be confused if you
That
want
do
me
half the day
to
in orange and
have
half in a suit.
the bailiffs ask the CO if there's any new information that can be relayed to you before we bring the jury out?
that would be helpful, Your Honor.
Do you have any objection? I could email the jail administrator if you want, or I can just simply have the bailiffs do that.
Whichever works best for Your Honor.
All right, let's see. She's not going to give me information in an email, that much I know, but I could at least find out if there's new information. If there's new information, then it's going to have to be given to you directly. That may require you to be taken into the holding cell to be given.
I
that
don't listen to
information, okay?
chipmunks
I'm
very
okay.
often,
Okay.
but as
Let
I
me
disclosed yesterday, we've got
Just
those
continue that,
gigantic squirrels outside.
Again, right now.
Not
he's in
ADHD
the
squirrels,
jail
but
attire.
real
We're gonna give
squirrels.
him an opportunity to see if there's
And
any
they-
update regarding the testing that was
6
done
in the
earlier
morning.
this week.
It's cold enough now that
And
it's
until
October that
we
I've
at
closed
least
my
get word
bedroom
whether there is
window,
new
but
information or
during the
not,
summer
we'll-
they sit in the
will
walnut tree
not bring
right
the
outside
jury
my
out.
window, and they start screaming at 6 in the morning, and it drives
I
me
will make
nuts.
a record that Mr. Brooks
So I
has
can
the
understand
phone
not wanting to
boxes
listen
that
to
have been
chipmunks
referenced
for hours.
previously. I see the
I get enough in
objection sign.
Real
I
life.
see the selected statutes that the court provided to him previously, and I see he has a number of papers in front of him. So he looks as if he's prepared to participate meaningfully today.
Can I say something real quick for the record, Your Honor?
Sure.
I did bring these boxes up. I have not had the time to go through everything.
That's
in there.
your fault.
As you can see, it's a lot.
She warned you not to
Yeah,
fire
and
your
that's putting it
attorneys.
minimal. A lot. So I have not had the time to go through everything that's in there. I'm winging it, Your Honor.
That's your fault. She warned you.
Deputy Wittig, any new information? All right, well, can you provide that? Well, let me just see. We'll just do it. All right, the information that I have on whether there's new information is they don't have the results, but medical will be called again to check on that to see if anything new, any new information is available. But as of right now, there's not. I also was advised that you were offered 3 times to have street closed by Officer Gabor. Just want to make a record of that. All right, then, Mr. Brooks, we don't have.
And I'm
currently
making
new
it rain.
information. I intend to just continue then, okay?
You're now a moderator, Empty Woods.
Really quick.
All 4 people who have been active in chat are moderators. Don't
To
abuse it.
the decision of Your Honor for me to be removed from the proceedings.
It's
over
me
the last
showing
few days.
appreciation for you showing up when I'm
That
a little itty bitty
was
tiny YouTuber.
used from the Illinois versus Allen, right?
Illinois.
I also had cited to. a
Illinois
case that I
versus
believe
Allen is the case she
is on
cited
point, although not
about him
binding
being
on this
removed from the
court. It's-
courtroom.
I am persuaded by the reasoning in United States versus Jennings, found at 855 F Sup 1427.
I'm all about the bribes.
Which is from 1994. From
Judging by that, I'm
Pennsylvania,
guessing you're not in Houston or Brownsville,
as well as, sorry, just that one.
meaning one of the parts
That was
that's
affirmed by the
ungodly
Third
hot year
Circuit
round.
in United States v. Jennings, 61 F 3rd 867.
Here in Utah, it was
Third Circuit,
107
1995.
degrees after Labor Day. It was an all-time record
So
for
the
Salt
first,
Lake City.
decision I referenced was a
Over a month later
federal district court
than the
decision,
prior
and then the
time it
Third
had hit
Circuit
that
decision.
temperature.
Let me know if you need those citations again.
It's just it's
does any
ridiculous.
one of those mention the
Okay,
being present
I stand
through,
corrected. I assume
audio
it's warmer than the
and visual.
51 degrees my computer says it is here
Yes,
in Salt Lake
audio.
at 8:03 a.m.
In other
Okay.
words, the
Would that be
defendant in that case, who
Should be
also
mid
was a
70s
pro se
today, I
defendant, was
think.
removed from the courtroom after he said he would continue disruptive conduct in the presence of prospective jurors, but he was able to continue to listen to proceedings through loudspeakers and transmit messages to the court, was barred. And what the court held is he was barred from the proceedings by his own conduct, not by the court, and the conviction in that case was affirmed.
Ooh,
Want that
70
citation
or
again?
79 today.
No, I'm not interrupting, am I?
No, go ahead.
I do represent myself pro per. I would like that stated for the record. Like the record to reflect that, not pro se.
I'm surprised it
So
only
reflect your
hit
choice of
100 once or twice in
term
IRTA.
to describe your appearance today.
I think it was
I
20 plus
briefly
days in a row here in
read,
Salt Lake.
Illinois versus
Of
Allen.
course,
It
that's
didn't
at
say,
the airport is where the
it didn't
official
give any
measurement
reference
takes
at all
place.
to
I'm
him being
about
present
300 or
by,
400 feet higher
audio
than
or
the
visual
airport, so
in that case.
that usually
whatsoever. It just
drops a
strictly
degree or
talks
two.
about, the reasons that he was removed.
I think my
and
house is
the options
exactly at
that
4,600 feet.
the judge had in that. One of them being that he could be bound and gagged.
I'm kind of a
One of them
geography
being that he can be
geek
held in
and just find
contempt.
sort of topography fascinating for
removed
some
from the
reason.
courtroom while the trial would continue, but it did not say anything about being present visually or audio or by audio.
Well, I appreciate you reading the case, sir, and providing that information. I'm well aware of what the case says. And as that case says,
Do you get
the
northern breezes off
Supreme
the
Court talked
remnants
about
of the Great
there
Salt
would be
Lake?
no one formula for maintaining the appropriate courtroom atmosphere.
We used to get pounded by
and
lake
no one
effect
formula will be best in all situations.
here in Sugar
But the
House.
Supreme Court said this.
But
"We
since
think there
Farmington
are
Bay's been
at
dry, I think is the
least
reason.
3 constitutionally
It skips
permissible
over us
ways
and
for a trial
hits
judge to handle
Sandy
an
and
obstreperous
Magna,
defendant like
Tuella,
Allen,
basically both
going
sides
through
of
the
the
3
Okers and
things that
Sandy a
you,
lot harder than it hits us.
identify. And my findings here are that there's a 4th way. And
But in the
that's through
winter,
the
we
wonders of technology
we
that
have
weren't
had
available in
3+
1970
feet of snow at my
when
house a
that,
couple times,
decision was
but not
authored.
recently.
So I appreciate the notation on the record. You are here today, and I hope you stay here today. That's certainly my preference. You've demonstrated you're able to prepare, you're able to ask questions, you're able to
I live
articulate in a clear,
between the
coherent,
canyons,
cogent, and
so
responsive
we don't get the
way.
direct
And I'd like to bring the
wind
jury out.
constantly.
That's what we're going to do next.
My extended family all lives in
Just want to say something very quick.
Centerville,
Very quick,
although I
sir.
guess some live in Layton
I-
now,
I don't see
up
that
in Davis
4th way,
County.
Your Honor.
And
Also, when they
Mr.
talk-
Brooks, my decision stands from previous.
basically,
if you believe there's
up
any
there,
error that I made, that
if
is
the
for you
wind
to
stops,
address
people
if
fall
there is
over.
a conviction and on appeal. But my decision stands,
May I
and
put-
the record speaks for itself.
may I put on record that I intend to appeal that?
That's irrelevant.
Okay.
You just
Decision, Your
appeal.
Honor.
Understood.
You just
You may
appeal.
appeal as you deem appropriate.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's bring the jury out. I will ask everyone stand for the jury.
My cousin
out
has
of respect
10
for them.
acres inland from Coos Bay in the forest there. And I'm jealous. I love Utah. I love the mountains, but I melt in the heat. It's I had to stream with my leg off today just because sitting for so long hurts. But I wear this silicone liner over my stump. And then jam this carbon fiber bucket over it. And that just makes things so hot. So I need to find a place that's 75 year round.
Maybe Laura, I don't know. Oh, poor guy. So I'm going to send you this email. I just need the cases printed off. I don't want to interrupt with printing here. Or do you want to send it to the? I'm not going to.
I drove past it once. My grandma's cousin, who that sounds like a distant relation, but she's closer in age to my mom and is more of a, she was more of a daughter to my grandma than a cousin. And she lives in Vancouver, Washington. So we went for her daughter's wedding in 1996 in the summer. Drove up to Portland, Vancouver on I-84, but we drove home down the coast all the way down to Redding. And then my dad had the brilliant idea, instead of continuing on to San Francisco or Sacramento, I think is how it would have been, and taking I-80 across the Sierras, we took the cutoff on Redding. And I don't get car sick usually, but that was just an unending drive up and down and up and down and winding all around.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Welcome
And
back. Have
it
a
was
seat. We'll
painful.
make sure you all, looks like you all have your writing materials to take notes if you so choose.
Yes, we have a
record,
swamp cooler,
I
which
have received exhibits.
we had a
1,
window mounted
3,
one in the bathroom
and
for
5.
about the last 20 years, but
With that, the state
last
may
year
call
we
its next witness.
got a
you,
roof
Mr. Cooper,
mounted
Patterson.
swamp cooler, and it does a good job considering it's so dry here. A swamp cooler for empty
Good
woods is
morning,
a
Ms. Patterson. If you would please make your
evaporative
way
cooler
to the
that
witness stand,
only
just
works in
upper
dry
riser and
climates,
to
so
my
it
right.
wouldn't work in
When
Houston,
you
it
get
wouldn't
there,
work
please
in
raise
Coos
your right
Bay.
hand. My clerk Teresa, who's standing over here, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Thank you. Have a seat.
This looks like the ex-girlfriend.
First thing I will have you do is to state your first and last names for the record and then spell each.
Okay. Erica Patterson.
We get those here.
Erika
We-
Patterson.
I live
you.
right
Go
at
ahead,
the mouth
witness.
of the canyon, pretty much,
Good
where
morning, Ms. Patterson. How are you doing today?
people head up to Park
I'm
City
fine,
for
thank you.
skiing.
Can you tell us, do you know a man by the name of Darrell Brooks?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the court have Mr. Brooks temporarily remove his mask.
He was saying
Remove
earlier,
your mask, please.
if Miss Brooks or
Ms. Patterson, do you
Miss
see Darrell
Patterson
Brooks in the courtroom
testifies,
today?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us where he's sitting and what he's
trying to
wearing?
object to an
On the
exhibit
left side,
being
and he's wearing
admitted.
an orange shirt and a mask.
I'd ask the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Prosecution was right,
The record
though,
will
that
reflect
she is
that this witness
testifying.
has identified the defendant.
Can you tell us how long you've known Darrell Brooks?
Since I was 15,
How old are you now?
32 today.
Yep. My
Oh,
parents
great.
have an Airbnb duplex across the street,
What's the nature
and
of your relationship with Mr.
it's
Brooks?
empty in
We
the
have a
summer,
15-year-old daughter
but ski
together.
season, it's booked.
In what
start to
state
finish.
Did you meet Mr. Brooks?
Reno, Nevada.
And when did you come to Wisconsin?
I mean, downtown
Last
is
year,
down.
2021,
The Salt Lake Temple
June
is
13th.
as close as
Why
you
did you
get
come
to
to
the castle here in
We're coming out
Utah.
here. I was going to be out
So,
here for 2 weeks and go back. but
I
ended
think
up
that
going
one's
back.
pretty. There are ugly ones out there.
Wisconsin. Where-
All the
There are
modern
Where
church
did you
meet
live when you got
Mormon
to
church
Wisconsin?
meeting
At my
houses, I
church.
think,
Oh, we lived with his mother.
are hideous. That to me they look like an upside down
What
boat.
city was that?
I joke that they're waiting for
Yeah,
the
that's
next
fine.
great flood, and then
That's
they'll
what my dad
pry
was
them
saying.
upside down and
Yes,
sail
ma'am.
away.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
At some point, did you stop living in Milwaukee and start living in Waukesha?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember approximately when that timeline was?
November 2nd, 2021.
Where were you staying in Waukesha?
The women's shelter. in Waukesha.
Really drives
That's
me
downtown?
nuts. My mom's church building, like I said, I grew up
Person by the name
Mormon,
of Corey Runkle.
and my mom's
Yes.
building was
Where did you meet Corey Runkle?
pretty
Women's
good
shelter.
looking,
Were you roommates?
but they tore
Yes.
it down 10 years ago and
I wanna
built
direct your attention
an
to
upside
the
down
date
boat.
of November 21st, 2021.
Yes.
Did you know anything about a parade happening in Waukesha that day when you woke up that morning?
I didn't know about the parade.
Okay, what about that afternoon? Did it become apparent to you that something
Yes.
was going on?
Yes.
Did you come into contact with Darrell Brooks on the afternoon of November 21st, 2021?
Yes.
Where did you first come into contact with Mr. Brooks?
At Frame Park.
This prosecutor
How did that come about? What were you doing and why did you
examined
We
her
were messaging
roommate
and calling
last
each other all
night.
day. We were arguing.
I
back and forth.
really like
He
him.
came out there. Well, I told him I
He's
was
the
with
least
Miss
experienced, but
Corey,
he's excellent.
And he came out there. I told him where I was. Got in his car. We drove around. And then I forgot the street. We went up that street. It's a hill. It's kind of by the Walgreens. We went up that hill. We drove around. Me and him got into an altercation.
They pointed
And
out
I
the
jumped out
that
of the
hill
car,
on the map
walked,
yesterday.
and found my way back by Frame Park. And then he followed me there. And then I went back in his car. I got
And
out,
I expressed
and
my
I called
surprise that
Corey.
they
I
have
called Corey
hills in
before that.
Wisconsin.
And she came to meet me. I told her that me and him got into an altercation. So she met up with me, and by the time she got there, she pulled me out the way because his car turned around. He swerved. She pulled me out of the way. He got up his car, and they got into an altercation. He pushed her in her face, and I don't remember if she hit him back or he
Yeah,
hit back. That's when we
tourists
walked
need
away
to
and walk back to the women's shelter.
Okay, let's go back. and
Learn
go
to be
through some of the
polite.
details of that, right?
They need to follow the
Um,
rules.
you said that you told Mr. Brooks that you were hanging
The
out
only
with Miss
place
Corey.
this is
Yes.
appropriate
Were you
is
hanging out with
Yellowstone,
Corey
and
Runkle
that's
earlier
because
that day?
Yes, her and her friend.
it's expected.
Yes,
Do you remember where you were with those two?
is at the Frame Park because we had split up when I met up with
And it's
Daryl.
pretty much the
Okay.
law
Do
that you
remember what were
yield to
doing in
Bison
Frame Park with
anyway.
Corey?
We were just hanging out.
Okay. Any alcohol involved?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you
They had
remember?
like a Mike's Hard, the little Mike's Hard beer.
The last
Would you say that you were intoxicated after consuming one? Mike's
2
Hard?
hours, you probably want to watch.
And,
I
at
I
what
don't
point
know
did you
when
split
your
up
phone
with
died.
Corey?
The
When Daryl was on his way. Corey and Nick had
prosecution's
left, so I
opening
sat there and waited for him. We
was
were still arguing on the phone, but I waited for
given
him.
by this
You were in
young
Frame Park?
man,
Yes.
and he was excellent.
How did Darrell arrive?
And
His-
it was hard
he
to
walked
listen
to
to.
Waukesha.
It was
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
In his mother's car. It was the red. Was it a Ford?
But then they,
I'm not sure what kind of car, but it was the red.
the
Have you seen him
most
driving that
experienced
car on
prosecutor
previous occasions?
Yes.
examined
Um,
a police sergeant who was
had you ever been in
excellent,
that vehicle before?
Yes.
and then this young man did the
When
roommate.
you were staying
and
with Mr. Brooks' mother.
The
were you
cross
staying in the
examination
house?
was a mess.
No.
Where were you staying?
We were outside.
For both of
sometimes he'd
them.
sleep in that car because his mom, he was not allowed to, be in the house. So, yes.
And you slept in that car with Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
But missing
That was
it, you
before
don't
November
you don't need it for
24th.
context today, I don't think.
Describe for us what happened when Mr. Brooks first arrived in Frame Park, when you first saw him that day.
We were still.
I was
arguing
losing my mind
because He
though,
was already in a bad mood when he met up with me anyway.
cross-examining the
argument
second
that-
witness.
Face to face using words, not
He was
messaging,
so
right?
redundant
Okay.
and just over and
Did
over
you
and
get in the
over in a
vehicle?
feedback loop.
Yes.
What should have
And what
taken
happened?
5
We
minutes
drove around and we're arguing.
Took
That's when
an
we got into
hour.
altercation in the car, and that's when I jumped out and we're up the hill.
Do you remember exactly the route? That
I knew going in that
that you
cross-examinations
took while you were
would
driving
be
around?
the thing to watch.
Overruled. She may answer.
Yes, I do.
And
I'm
he
not sure
objected
the
to
exact street
relevance
names
and
because I'm
hearsay
not
on
from
almost
Waukesha,
every
but I do know
question.
about-
But they were all relevant, and none of it
After,
was hearsay.
Excuse me, the next day you met with Detective Steve.
Like it
Guthrie,
wasn't
is that
even
right?
questionable
Yes,
that it was
it was the
hearsay.
same
Like
day.
it wasn't
Okay.
within one of the
And
exceptions. It
You,
was
got
just,
in the squad car with Detective.
I think he
Guthrie
Oh, that
heard
was the next
hearsay
day,
on
yes.
Law and Order and
and
knew it was
showed him
an
the route that you took with
I
Mr.
sh-
Brooks?
yes. I
objection
did.
to make.
All right. You described going up a hill.
I was
right?
losing my
Yes.
mind.
Did you cross the river before you did that?
No,
What happened once you got up at the top of the hill?
he drove up farther more, and then that's when I jumped. It was on the up the hill. It was farther more, and then that's when he hit me, and I jumped out of his car. Well, his mother's car.
Most of yesterday
were
was
you
pretty
sitting?
boring.
The passenger side.
It
front seat,
was,
Where was he sitting?
driver's side,
What did he use to hit you?
his hand.
it was pre-trial
hand
housekeeping and
opposed
then
to this?
reading the jury instructions to the jury.
What was it? Like this. Sorry.
So,
Open hand.
If you go
but
back
it was
and
hard because it
rewatch the
Like
stream, or well,
Raised your
watch
right
the
hand and
yes.
Kind of waved it
video
almost like a
feed,
back
not
slap?
it won't
No,
be a
harder
live
than
stream
that.
anymore.
Okay.
Fast
What
forward
did you do after
the afternoon
Brooks
stream
struck you?
until
I
like
cried,
2
and then
hours
I just
into
jumped
it.
out the car, and then going towards down the hill. That's when he was following me,
it was interesting, but
Describe
it
how
went
you were
on
going
too
down the
long.
hill.
walking down the hill,
And how was he going down the hill?
driving.
The red Ford Escape?
Yes,
What happened next?
he just followed me all the way to the park.
Okay.
He tried to take my phone from me at the light going down the hill, and he just kept following me and arguing with me out the window.
Do you recall being near a gas station while this argument was happening?
Yes,
Objection to relevance.
yes,
Hold on. Overruled. She may answer, and
She needs
the
to
answer
wait
she
to
provided
answer.
may stand.
yes. It was right at the light. The gas station's on the. Oh, that's a gas station on the left, and then Walgreens is towards the right.
I'm assuming
And,
the surveillance
remember what
camera was at the
being
gas
said
station
at
that
the gas
caught
station?
this altercation.
I do not remember.
I'm assuming that's why it's relevant.
What happened when you got past the gas station?
I kept walking. He was still following me.
Did you at any point attempt to contact anybody for help?
No, just Corey. But towards towards the
It's
the frame
important,
part.
but
That's when I called
I
her.
do
I
wish
got
they
closer
could
to there.
consolidate it
Did she answer?
into
Yes.
blocks of
What did you say?
similar
I said, he
charges
just hit me,
and
and I said, "I need you to
read
meet me,"
out
and that's when she met me.
the individual victims.
Where did you
Say,
go?
you're
I walked
accused
past frame park,
of
and I
counts 1 through
went,
6
I met Corey,
are first
and
degree
well, I got
intentional
into his car
homicide
and
of
got
this
back
person,
out.
this
I met
person, this
Corey
person, this
at
person.
White Rock School, I believe it is.
When you say his car, you're talking about who?
But I understand
Darrell.
why they don't.
And were you familiar with White Rock School at the time? Did you ever
No.
been there before?
No,
You just know that.
Of course, most
That's
trials
what
aren't
was said.
76 charges.
What happened when you got to White Rock School?
that's when because I had got there, got back in his car, talked to him, got back out. Corey had met. She snatched me out of the way because he swerved his car when he made a U-turn.
The exhibit
and then that's when
he
he got out of the car,
objected to
and they
being
were arguing,
admitted
and he hit
is
her in the
of
face.
her with a black
And then I
eye.
think she pushed him back. I don't recall. And then I was trying to split them up at the time. After that, we just kept walking and went to the women's shelter.
Who's we?
Me and Miss Corey.
That's Corey
Madam
Runkle,
Clerk,
who
would you please
testified
have the
yesterday.
State's rear table projected for the witness.
They were roommates at the women's shelter, which I'm assuming is the battered women's shelter.
Projected on the screen in front of you.
They have a second counsel table behind the 3
You see this
prosecutors.
Have you seen?
I don't know if those are
Yes.
paralegals or
What does it depict?
sort of
What's in this
research
video? What do we see
attorneys
here?
who are there for
Me
support.
walking, and you're going to see him turning the car back around and Corey meeting up with me. in the
She's laying a
altercation we
foundation
had.
for the
Does
video,
this video accurately show
which has
what
already
happened in
been
front of the White Rock
admitted
School on
to
November 21st of
evidence.
2021?
Yes.
Assuming it's the
Board
same
to
video
evidence
that
and
was shown
request
yesterday.
permission to publish.
Any objections?
Yes,
Yes, we haven't even played the video. How do we know what's even in the video at this point? Can we see the video?
Because
before
it's
this
not
is
in
admitted into evidence?
evidence yet.
Your
She's
objection is noted, the
validating-
foundation has been laid. Exhibit 4 is received.
and now you play it for the jury. And
permission to publish is granted.
just as a warning, they do show the videos on the live stream. At least they have so
Shut
far.
off the I think it's the Polycom system that's
Oh,
taking
yeah,
up
we
the
certainly
screen.
can.
Yesterday's video, though, was small, but it did show the physical altercation between Miss Robinson and Miss Runkle and Mr.
Timestamp
Brooks.
of 51 seconds in this exhibit.
Oh, this is a different video, though. There's the red Ford Escape.
Paused at 1:04. And just to clarify, Ms. Patterson, we're going to watch portions of the video. We're not going to talk while it's playing. And then when it's paused, I'll ask you questions, okay?
They're doing a
Zoom
good
at
job
1:04.
controlling the witness.
Let's pause. We've paused at 1 minute and 37 seconds. Ms. Patterson, who did we see in the video there walking?
Me.
And we saw a red SUV, right?
Yes.
Who was driving that SUV?
Darrell Brooks.
Was there anybody else in the vehicle at that point, to your knowledge?
Nope.
Okay, let's resume playing.
I assume that's her walking on the sidewalk. The problem with surveillance cameras is the streets and sidewalks are a long way out.
Let's pause there. At 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The two people who just entered the screen from the right, do you know who they are?
Corey and Nick.
Do you know which is which?
Corey's on the left, Nick's on the right.
Let's resume playing.
Nick is the other friend that was present for the altercation. I don't know if he'll testify. Who's whispering? They haven't edited out the boring parts of the video, basically, in between the action, because the rule of completeness, they don't want Mr. Brooks to be able to claim, well, they edited out the part where I bought them lunch in between, you know, where we hugged and high-fived. Or where they provoked me or whatever. There's the red escape again.
Okay, let's pause there. At 6 minutes and 3 seconds. Ms. Patterson, we watched the video, but you were there. Can you tell us what was happening during that portion of the video we just watched?
Corey and Mr. Brooks were arguing, and that's when he pushed her in her face, and she.
Which we
called the
saw on
police back,
video
and then
yesterday.
That's when he drove off. One of them, I think it was Nick, called the police, and that's when he drove off.
Do you remember what Nick said when he called the police?
I believe Nick said he had a knife, if I recall, but he didn't have one. But that's what Nick said on the phone.
When you say
The sergeant
he-
testified that over the radio he received a report
And you didn't see Mr.
Of
Brooks with a knife that day?
an altercation with a
Or
knife.
Did you see him with a knife?
No,
Did you have a knife?
no,
Corey?
no.
Why do you think Nick said to the police that there was a knife?
Probably to make them come faster.
Who got into the driver's seat at the end of that video?
Darrell Brooks?
And again, anybody in the vehicle at that point?
No.
Other than him?
No.
Let's resume playing from 6:03.
She looks nervous. Which, once again, isn't a criticism at all. I'd be nervous too. I commend every single person that gets up there on the witness stand. Oh,
And we can
they're
stop
running past
at 6 minutes and 54
in the other
seconds.
direction.
What did we see in that clip, Ms. Patterson?
I walked away from Corey and Nick because I was mad because me and her started arguing after that because she was mad that I even met up with Mr. Brooks.
Okay.
And then she was running after me,
Do you know the direction that you were walking there?
straight.
That's fair. Waukesha's
Sorry.
confusing.
I'm
for each other.
sorry. It really is. I'm sorry.
Towards downtown or away from?
Towards downtown. Sorry.
And where did you go after you walked?
That would be a
I just
general
kept walking
south
until they followed me, and then
direction,
we made a left. I'm not sure which street it was. but we
judging
made a
from the
left.
map they showed
We
yesterday.
didn't know. Yeah. We just made a left turn and went straight towards the women's shelter.
Before you turned off of the street you're walking on here, did you have contact with the police officer?
Yes, we did.
You spoke briefly with that officer.
They gave a
Yes.
statement.
Where'd you go after you spoke with that?
He
officer?
wrote a report,
Then we left. That's when we made the left across the street
and Brooks read
went towards
from the
shelter,
report
Waukesha.
yesterday, and it was not
At the
good.
moment when Mr. Brooks left the little physical scuffle that we saw there and got into the driver's seat, how would you describe his demeanor?
He was angry.
Okay, how do you know that? What was he saying or doing that led you to believe that?
I'm surprised he's not
Besides the
frivolously
fact that he was arguing
objecting
the whole time when he hit me. He was just mad.
at the moment.
Left very angry. He just drove off fast. He was mad. They called the cops.
You don't recall any specific things that he said at that point?
No,
Do you recall what kind of shoes he was wearing?
I do not.
Do you remember?
I
meeting
think
with
that's
detectives after this
brought up
saying that
because
he was wearing blue slides.
after
I don't recall that.
he ran
but-
through the parade,
Sorry.
he showed up at a stranger's house asking to use the phone.
We, please
and
look for the witness
He
only.
didn't have shoes or a coat, and so the stranger gave him a coat or a blanket or something and a sandwich.
The witness, oh,
You recognize this photograph? Ms.
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I didn't.
So I
realize that.
assume that's why he's asking about the shoes.
Thank you. That was my understanding.
And he needed to use
Appreciate that. Okay.
the person's phone because he
And I
left
believe
his
actually Exhibit
phone
5 has already
in
been
the
exhibited,
car at the
received
scene,
and published,
which
so
helps to
that-
identify that it was him.
published again.
Permission granted.
And the sergeant who testified yesterday.
witness only.
Oh, there's a picture of
The
her with
exhibits
her black
previously been
eye.
Received and the state requested
But the
permission to publish. it
Sergeant
once
yesterday
again, and
testified that
I
as
granted
Brooks
that
was
request.
approaching the parade, he stood in front, the sergeant waving his arms, trying to stop him, and saw his face. So he
When it's-
he
when
made
I
a
say
positive
permission to publish
identification
granted, that means
of
that we can
him
show
in
it
the
to
car.
court and to the jury.
Okay, I didn't understand.
That's okay.
Ms. Patterson, who's that in the picture?
That's me.
And that photograph was taken
The day of the parade.
November 21st,
Yes.
the night.
Yes.
And what injuries do we see in that video, in that photograph?
That is.
I'd
my,
object if I were Mr.
left
Brooks
eye. That was
and make
swollen.
him ask,
Your
do you
left eye
see
would have been-
injuries? And then what injuries?
Eye closest to the defendant, based on your description of where you and the defendant.
If I
were
was
sitting in the
feeling
vehicle?
petty,
Yes.
because he'd get it in anyway.
And how did you sustain that injury?
From him, Mr. Brooks. when
And
he
that
hit me.
objection would be facts, not an evidence yet. But like I said, that it would be an irrelevant objection, but sometimes you just gotta be
Did
petty
you
and
consent
break
in
their
any way to
stride.
Being struck in the face?
No.
That's all I have for this witness.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I do. First of all, good morning
Good morning.
and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, it's her
Um,
birthday?
You stated that you were hanging
I
out
hope
with your
she
friend,
gets
Miss
cake
Lori,
and a
on the
flower
day of this
and
incident,
flowers from
correct?
someone
Yes.
today.
Would it be fair to say that you were hanging out drinking?
Yes.
Would it also be fair to say that
Stop with the would it be fair to say?
you
It,
occasionally drink too much?
every one of those I'd say,
Sustained.
no, it's not fair to say.
Would it be fair to say that, well, let me back up. What were you drinking?
A Mike's Hard beverage.
Were you aware that it was said that you were actually drinking vodka?
No.
Hold on. When there's an objection, I need to rule on it first, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Sustain that mischaracterizes the previous testimony. Next question.
So it would be fair to say that you were drinking.
Miss Runkle was drinking vodka.
Would it be fair to say that you were a little intoxicated?
I was not.
How much did you drink that day?
1 cup of Mike's Hard alcohol beverage.
And around what time of the day was that?
I don't remember.
I'm not a drinker,
Was it
but I don't think
shortly
one
before meeting up with the
Mike's
alleged defendant,
hard
or was it
lemonade, I
sometime
assume, but
before?
It was before.
judging by her size, that's
Did you have
not going to
anything
get her
drink
tipsy.
after?
No, I did not.
And it's especially not going to impact her memory of being hit.
You stated that you were engaging in a conversation with the alleged defendant via the telephone. Would that be fair to say?
With the alleged defendant,
Texas
you're not an
phone calls.
alleged
Yes.
defendant.
Um,
You're alleged to have committed the crimes, but you are the defendant.
Well, those
There's nothing
texts and
alleged
phone
about
calls,
you being the defendant.
what nature were they of?
Me and Mr. Brooks were arguing throughout the day.
Don't play his games. Don't
In the
do
texts and phone
Mr.
calls?
Brooks.
Yes, we were.
Say you. I was
If
arguing
there
with
were-
you, not I was arguing with Mr.
Uh,
Brooks.
If the conversation was
Don't play his
argumentative, why
sovereign
would you
citizen
agree to
name
meet up
games.
with the alleged defendant?
I do not know.
Do you recall how the meetup was supposed to be set up?
I don't recall.
Did you at any time ask the alleged defendant to meet up with you?
Well, I told Mr. Brooks where I was.
Did you
Even
at
if
any
she
time
asked to meet up, she didn't
to meet up
ask
with the
to be
alleged
hit.
No, I did not.
So it would be fair to say that the alleged defendant
I am
just
petty,
came where you were?
at least towards
Yes,
him.
I told you where we were. And obviously, we were going to hang
I
out. and
really
told
dislike
Mr.
him
Brooks
after
to hang out
yesterday.
with me. I told him where we were.
So why would, if there was an argumentative conversation prior to you meeting up with the alleged defendant, why would you tell the alleged defendant where you were?
Sustained.
You just stated that you really don't know the city of Waukesha. Would that be fair to say?
Yes,
So how would you know exactly where you were?
Because she was there.
because I was with Corey and she's familiar with this area.
She can say, I was outside the gas
Would it be
station.
fair to
I was
say
at,
that Corey
I
overheard
was near
these
this, I was near that.
conversations between you and
She
the
doesn't
alleged
have to
defendant?
know
Yes, she was my roommate. She heard
exactly
every
which
conversation
street.
almost.
When you say every conversation, what would that
When
refer
she was in the room with me, when I was always talking to her.
So
Don't
would it be
interrupt.
fair
Let
to
her
say that you
answer.
were engaged in conversation with the alleged defendant before you even left the women's shelter?
Yes,
And those argumentative conversations continue into your hanging out.
yes,
Would it be fair to say that that's what led you to drink?
no,
Would it be fair to say you were drinking because that's what you wanted to do?
yes,
Is it true that one of the rules and requirements of being at the women's shelter is no drugs and no alcohol? Would that
That's
be fair to say?
irrelevant.
yes. But when I was drinking, it was at Frame Park. I was not at the women's shelter.
Would it be fair to say that you knew you had to come back into the women's shelter at some point that day, that they have a curfew?
Yes. And I made
And
it
this was
before
like
curfew.
4 in the afternoon.
Let me back up a little bit. You did state that part of the rules and requirements for being in the women's shelter is no drugs and no
Asked
alcohol,
and
correct?
answered.
Yes, it was not in the women's shelter.
That's not what I'm asking. It's part of the requirement and rules
Asked
of the women's
and
shelter. No
answered.
drugs, no alcohol.
Yes,
Sustained. Next question, Mr. Brooks.
He gets into this feedback loop.
Is there any type of drug and alcohol testing at the women's shelter?
I don't know. No,
No, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Which would
Would it be
indicate
fair to
she was
say
not
that if
tested.
it was found that you were engaging in drugs and alcohol, that you might have lost your place at the women's shelter?
How is any of this relevant?
Sustained. Next question.
So around what time were you hanging out with
4
Miss Corey,
o'clock
you said?
I
What,
don't remember.
do you remember where you were at?
ish.
Frame Park.
Do you remember where in Frame Park?
Near the gas
No.
station.
And approximately at what time did you meet up with the alleged defendant?
She said, asked and answered. She doesn't remember. But it would have been
How
about
long
4
were you-
o'clock.
With the alleged defendant. Do you remember that?
Approximately 30, 35 minutes.
Do you recall what? Well, you said that
He's not doing
during
himself
this
any favors.
time
That
you were
this
with the alleged
isn't
defendant that there was a
harming
going
her
on. Would that be fair to
credibility,
say?
and it's
Yes.
not
Do you remember what
showing
that
that
argument was
he
about?
didn't do what he did.
He was arguing with me about money because I did not bail him out.
Stop with the he. Say you.
You also said that well, let me back up from that a little bit. If you knew that the conversation was becoming volatile, why did you still meet up with the alleged defendant?
Asked
don't
and
know.
answered.
To your knowledge, did the alleged defendant know anything about the city of Waukesha?
Yes.
The-
And what did the alleged defendant know about Waukesha?
He
That's
told me-
vague.
Mr. Brooks told me
It-
that his first child's mother lives in Waukesha.
Do you know that to be a fact?
No, that's just what Mr. Brooks told me.
Stop. It's what you told me. Not that
Are
I'm
you-
criticizing
Are you
her.
aware that
I just wish she wouldn't
the
play his
alleged defendant,
games.
in fact, has no mother of any child that lives in the city of Waukesha?
Objection. If Mr. Brooks wants to testify, he should do so in a different state of the trial.
Sustained. You don't need to answer that.
Yes, ma'am.
Other than what you can recall about what the alleged defendant told you that they knew about Waukesha, how did the alleged defendant meet up with you in the location that you gave?
In the
He
red
already-
Ford
Mr.
Escape.
Brooks already knew where Frame Park was. Mr. Brooks previously had been to Waukesha plenty of times before. He's told me that.
And when
That wouldn't
when
be
was that
hearsay
told to
because
you, and
that's
what conversation was it?
party
that day?
opponent. So
He
what he
said that.
says
I'm not
is
sure
not
which day it
hearsay.
was. I just know he knows about Waukesha.
So would it be fair to say that when you told the alleged defendant where you were, that the alleged defendant knew exactly where you were?
Yes.
Clearly,
And
since
How would
you
the alleged
found
defendant
her.
know that?
Because Mr. Brooks already knew Waukesha. He knew exactly where to go.
This is
Did you at
ridiculous.
any time give
She shouldn't be
directions where you may have
testifying
been?
about what he
How could I give
knows.
directions when I barely knew Waukesha myself?
Is that a no?
That's a no, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
So if you barely knew Waukesha yourself, where did you get the information of where you were from, where you were at
I was-
the time of the conversation via telephone?
I left the women's shelter with Corey, and she knows that location. She told me what Frame Park was. I didn't know the name.
And would it be fair to say, assuming from what you just said, that you were with the alleged defendant for approximately around 30 minutes or so?
Yes.
She already said about 30, 35 minutes.
And during that
Asked
time,
and answered.
did you make any disparaging remarks or anything to entice the argument to escalate?
No,
That's a little victim blaming.
So
You
didn't say
made me
anything at
do
all
this.
during your 30 minutes with the alleged defendant?
no, because I was crying the whole time because Mr. Brooks was yelling at me, arguing with me.
So you said absolutely nothing at all.
I was crying the whole time.
Did you say anything?
No,
Few more things.
no,
Few more questions.
None of them are going to be good.
You said that during this, well, once you had got out of the vehicle, as you say, you stated that your friend Miss Corey pulled you away from the vehicle because it swerved.
yes, it was in the video.
It was.
You do know that we just saw the video. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, but there's two angles of the video.
Well, we only saw one, so I'm referring
You
to the
saw
video that we saw.
you
Sorry,
saw
but
the
we
other
have to
video
verify
yesterday
Mr.
though,
Brooks
and it's
saying he
admitted
turned.
into evidence.
And you almost swerved into Miss Patterson, which is me.
Would it be fair to say that the video does not show that?
There's different angles, but the video does not show that. The video we watched.
So the video that we just watched,
But the video
that the jury
yesterday
just
showed it.
saw, there is no
Asked and answered.
swerving of the vehicle and you being pulled back. Would that be fair to
From
say?
that far angle, you can kind of see it. Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Answer the question, Mr. Brooks. Next question. Under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, I direct your attention to that next question.
Do you recall what was said during the altercation between is it Miss Corey and the alleged defendant?
Corey Runkle.
No, I don't remember.
Would it be fair to say that you were standing right there?
Yes, I just don't remember what was being said.
It was almost a year
Do you
ago.
recall reporting anything that may have been said during that incident?
No,
Did you give a statement to anything that may have been said again, during that incident?
no,
Miss Runkle
Was
did.
anything directed towards you verbally in that incident?
yes. Corey told Mr. Brooks, don't ever hit my effing friend again.
That's not exactly
I remember
responsive
that
to
part.
that
That was in the
question.
beginning.
But it is on the record and was in
Do you
the
remember anything
police
else that
report
may have been
that he
said?
said,
No.
I'm going to fucking kill you. Or I'm going to fucking kill that bitch.
Do you recall anything
But he doesn't
being
swear, so
said
it was,
by,
I'm gonna
Nick
effing kill
to the
that
alleged
bee.
defendant?
Because he doesn't
No.
swear now, but he, you know,
Do
it was
you recall
fine in the day,
alleged
the heat of
defendant
the
saying
moment.
anything to Nick?
No, I don't remember.
You also stated that right after this incident, you talked to law enforcement. Would that be fair to say?
Yes,
At any time, did you report any abuse?
yes,
And what did you report?
that you hit me.
And you gave a statement to that effect?
No, not to that police officer, but the detectives at the women's shelter.
Well, I'm referring to.
I think they gave a statement the next day.
During, well,
Oh, I don't
directly
remember.
after the incident.
I don't remember what I told that police officer.
Just one quick second. I'm reading from the statement, if I may.
You may.
I think he's probably reading a portion that's going to be damaging to him, and it doesn't help
Do
to
you remember
read
what was said by
damaging portions.
the alleged defendant when that incident ended?
No, I do not remember.
Do you remember reporting in your statement that the last thing he said to me was FUB, erase my number? Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Like I said yesterday,
Would it be fair to
always
say
take
that
the
you reported
opportunity
that
to
this was
swear in
said?
court if you
I
can
don't remember.
by doing direct quotes.
Do you remember giving a statement to that effect?
No,
Good morning.
Would it be fair to say that you
How's
gave a
Georgia
statement?
this morning?
no, I don't remember. I gave a statement to the detectives at the Women's Center.
So
That's
would
what
it
I
be
remember.
fair? I'm sorry, I didn't know.
It's pretty disgusting.
You done answering?
Yes,
All right, next question.
Would it be fair to say that
And it really
your
doesn't
memory was
impact
kinda
her
cloudy that
credibility
day because you
one
were
iota.
intoxicated?
no,
And John, this is the ex-girlfriend who was
There's a lot of things in this
attacked
statement
right
that you don't
before
seem
the
to remember. Is
parade.
that fair to say?
This-
Sustained. Next question.
Would it be fair to say that you reported 2 different incidents?
yes,
Oh, it sounds like he's trying to open
Do
the
you
door
remember the
to.
dates of those incidents that you
The
reported?
20th
This is
and the
not
21st.
smart of him.
Would it be fair to say
He's
that
opening the door.
there was no incident on the 20th?
no,
Well,
Would it be fair
anytime
to
you're
say
here is
that-
nice. So I appreciate it. And we've got about a month to go, so
You
there's
were
plenty of
initially
time
not
to come and
truthful
go.
with law enforcement?
no,
And I think this is going to be
Do
the
you recall,
least traumatic witness we have left.
making a statement to law enforcement on November the 22nd?
It's terrible
of
when a
2021?
domestic violence victim is the
I
least
don't remember.
traumatic victim.
I made this
To listen
statement
to.
on the 21st of the day of the parade when I met the detectives that night.
Do you recall making a second statement the next day, or the next morning rather, which would have been the 22nd of November, 2021?
I
Yes,
believe
did,
that's
actually.
when they
Yes, I
spoke
did.
to the defendant, or to the detective.
Do you recall what you reported that day?
I told them about the 20th when I met with Mr. Brooks, and all we did was argue. And you hit me then too.
So
He's opening the
You
door.
reported
That's a prior bad
incidents
act.
for
That
2 days in a row.
Yes,
this is not helping. This, well, it
Do
is
you
helping the
recall,
prosecution.
At any time telling law enforcement that you were not truthful and wanted to be truthful at that point?
no,
So you never made a statement to your knowledge that you fabricated a reported abuse incident?
no.
1 second here, I'm reading from that. To the best of your knowledge, do you remember talking with a detective? I don't want to butcher this name, Your Honor. I don't know how to pronounce it.
You can spell it if that's helpful.
A detective, Behrndt.
Barrett.
Detective Barrett? Is it a detective or an officer?
It says detective, Your Honor.
Okay, ask your question.
Do you remember speaking with that detective?
Once again, those good German roots in
Yes.
Milwaukee.
Do you remember what you reported to that detective?
I don't remember.
probably that you abused
I'm
her.
reading directly from the statement, Your Honor, if I may. Do you remember reporting to that detective saying you were not completely forthright with all of the information that you had given because you were afraid to get other people involved in your drama or your business?
I don't remember that.
And I'll object and move to strike based on the fact that I think I'm safe in saying that that is not from the report which the defendant is referring to.
The objection is sustained. I'll grant the motion to strike by the state of the question and any response that may have been elicited before I address the objection.
He's going after her credibility, but it once again, it's
Your Honor, put the
harmful
question
to
on that.
him
I'm reading
because
directly from the report.
he's attacking her for being less than forthright, but that was not giving all of the bad evidence against him. And so saying, yes, he hit me, instead of saying, yes, he hit me in front of this person and then swung at them.
Next question, Mr. Brooks.
And then later saying, yeah, I didn't include all the evidence because I didn't want to involve them in this drama. That's not lying. That's not being untruthful. It's not being immoral. It's protecting your friends. And this has no impact on her credibility. It just hurts him.
I apologize for that, Your Honor. Do you remember at any time speaking with Officer Guth?
Yes,
And do you recall on what date that was?
A year ago,
November 21st.
Do you remember what you reported on November the 21st?
That me and Mr. Brooks, I met with Mr. Brooks at Frame Park. Me and Mr. Brooks got into an altercation. You hit me. I jumped out of your car and I walked and met my friend Corey. You followed me. And
yesterday with
after
Miss
that,
Runkle,
Nick and
after
Miss
playing
Corey,
the
they
name
called
game,
the police officer,
Mr. Brooks,
and then you
the
drove
prosecutor on redirect had
Just
her
1 second, Your Honor.
identify him again as the person who did it, which I thought was smart. In fact, I even said before that
Do you
that's exactly what I'd do.
recall reporting to Officer Guth that you were not completely forthright with the information that you reported?
I don't remember. And no, actually, no, I did not say that. I apologize.
I think so. I think it's to
So
make
reading
to
from
sound
what was
diplomatic,
reported to Officer
less
Guth
confrontational, but it's not helping.
states that
It
what I
plus
learned from Erica Patterson was that when I spoke to her
it's
on the previous evening,
if
with
I were
Officer
testifying
Darrell,
to that question, I'd
is
say no,
that
it's
the
not fair to
pronunciation,
say,
Your Honor? I'm sorry.
and that would be responsive
I
to
don't
that
have it in front of me,
question.
I'm not sure.
She was not completely forthright with all of the information she had given. Would that be fair to say?
What was your question?
Do you recall in your reporting to Officer Guth
Mhm.
that you were not forthright with the information that you gave?
No.
Looks like the
I don't recall.
squirrel's out there, not the ADHD squirrel, but
So to the best of
that
your
telephone wire
recollection,
is
at any time that you reported
bouncing.
incidents to any law enforcement, at any time do you recall being untruthful?
No.
Being incomplete isn't being untruthful.
So do you remember Do you remember the date and time of the first incident?
This
that
cross
you
should have been
alleged?
done
I
in
don't remember
under
the
10
time,
minutes.
but it was November 20th.
Do you remember what time of day that may have been?
I just said I don't remember.
Do you remember where you were at?
Frame
Park.
Park.
So would it be fair to say that both alleged incidents that you are alleging happened at Frame Park?
The second incident on November 21st did not happen on Frame Park. We were driving around and he hit me.
What
The
I'm
first
asking
incident.
is where you were at when you met up.
Frame Park, yes.
On
That's
both,
not what you
on both
just
alleged
said.
occasions?
Yes. That's how Mr. Brooks knew where Frame Park is. He already knew Waukesha area in the first place.
Same park.
Yes.
Do you remember where you were at in Frame Park?
No, it was in the parking lot, the first side of the parking lot, kind of by the baseball field, I think that is. If that
Do
is
you-
the baseball field.
Do you recall who you were with?
Nobody. I was with Corey on November 21st, and the first day on November 20th, I was by myself.
So it would be fair to say that you went to the park alone.
Yes.
Yes. I met up with Mr. Brooks
She was alone.
intentionally on the 20th. Yes.
At this point, it's just badgering.
Were you drinking that day?
No.
And how did you know how to get to Frame Park, as you call it?
I knew how to get to Frame Park. I've been the previous times before that with Miss Corey. Walking past it. I knew how to get there because Corey walked with me that day too. I just was not with her. She walked towards there with me.
And so then you separated?
Yes.
She's mad, and I don't blame her.
Did you separate from Miss Corey at any time during the 21st?
Yes, I did. She left with Nick and I was with Mr. Darrell Brooks.
Do you recall, to the best of your knowledge, that it may have been someone else that she was with, that was with you that day?
She was by her. Which day are you clarifying? Which day?
November the 21st of 2021.
She was with Nick that day.
The entire day?
Yes.
How was it relevant the entire day?
And you guys separated from that point?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say you guys separated after hanging out and drinking?
Mr. Brooks, under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, you need to move on to a new topic. You've been over this multiple times. It's been asked, it's been answered. Now it's under my authority under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, you need to move on.
Thank you, Judge.
So to the best of your knowledge, well, let me back up.
You don't back up.
How did you communicate with the alleged defendant on November 20th of 2021?
By
Phone
phone
calls.
and in person.
Strictly phone calls, texts?
Both. Mostly phone calls.
Do you remember what was said in those texts and phone
Same
calls?
conversation we had on the 21st. He was mad because I wasn't giving him money from not bailing him out.
Remember, 2 of the charges are for bail jumping.
So why would you meet up with the alleged defendant that day?
Asked and answered.
Because I just wanted to. We have a 15-year-old together. I mean, I was always going to talk to you then.
Do you remember if there was any agreed upon meeting up that day
Yes,
by you, by the alleged defendant?
both.
Clearly, if you both showed up at the park,
Do you remember the reason why you were meeting up?
I just said why.
So it would have been just to conversate,
Just to conversate.
would it be fair to say that you could have communicated strictly by the phone?
Yes.
Under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, the objection is
Move
sustained. Next
on.
topic, if you have one, Mr. Brooks.
You said that you came to Wisconsin from another state. Would that be fair to say?
Atlanta, Georgia, yes, June 13th, 2021.
And why did you leave Georgia?
We were coming out here for 2 weeks.
I think
And I never
everyone
went back.
is. This is.
Can you state why you never went back?
It's not helping him.
Number one, I came out here, I didn't have money. Number two, I had no way to get back. And you were always, Mr. Brooks was always.
Don't play
physical.
his game. You.
So at any time were you ever offered money to go back to Georgia, or did anybody at any time
No.
ever?
No,
Did anybody at any time ever lend any help to?
How
go
is
back to
any
Georgia.
of this relevant?
Did you, to the best of your recollection, did you want to go back to Georgia?
Objection.
Sustained. Next question, please.
I'm on the same wavelength as the prosecutor.
So why didn't you file a report with law enforcement?
But I'm channeling the frustration for him.
On November the 20th, after you alleged that you were abused.
because I've been dealing with it for so many years, I just didn't do it. I don't see what this has anything to do
You
with.
get
this case.
desensitized.
How long have you known the alleged defendant again?
Since I was 15. I'm 32 now.
Would it be fair to say that you lived in
Okay,
different states from the alleged defendant?
they
Yes,
have
but
at
I-
least a 15-year-old, maybe 16 now. I don't know if the child was 15
I'll sustain the objection, rephrase.
at the time of the incident or now,
I was gonna get to that.
but she's 32. So
Would it be fair
she
to
was
say
16
that
or 17 when the
during
child
the
was
duration
born.
of the time
So
knowing the alleged
15 or
defendant, that
16,
the majority of that time you did not
when
live in the same area or state?
the child was
Yeah,
created.
off and on. I met Mr. Brooks in
He
Reno, Nevada.
is
I
40
moved
now.
out of Reno, Nevada.
So he was
2017 to
24
Atlanta,
or
Georgia. I
25.
moved Mr. Brooks throughout. I've known him throughout, with back and forth, off and on.
Just saying.
The whole 16 years, me and Mr. Brooks were not together, but it was off and on.
Did you guys live in the same area?
I like
off
him
and
even
on
less.
during that time?
Objection.
I-
Has to answer.
Sustained.
Out of the 16 years you said it was, correct?
Yes, off and on, Mr. Brooks.
How much of that time did you actually spend with the alleged defendant?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained. Also under 906.11 sub 1.
Move
C. Move
on. He just wants to keep her on the stand, I think, because none of this is
At the
relevant.
time of this
None of
alleged
this is
incident,
helping.
were you
None
and
of this
the
is
alleged
impacting
defendant
her
in any
credibility.
relationship?
Yes,
And were you a couple? Were you just co-parenting, or
we
what
were.
was the nature of the relationship? Is basically
We
what
were
I'm asking.
together. I wouldn't have came to Milwaukee, Wisconsin if I was not with him.
With
So it'd be
you
fair to say that you were in a committed relationship.
Yes,
at that time. I'm gonna need time with a puppy
One
after
second.
this or something. Just get my brother's corgi in the door. Luckily, he's just next door. Thinks
Would it be fair to say
my grandparent, well, my Oma is next door on the other side.
Sorry, I didn't know
Go
that.
ahead.
Menchie, the corgi, thinks all 3 yards are his,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
except the chickens and turkeys know who's in charge and they bully him.
How did
They peck at his rear end.
before you came back into contact with the alleged defendant, how long had it been since you had
That's
seen her?
irrelevant.
I don't know, but it's years, a couple years.
So it would be fair to say that there was a significant gap in between interactions with the alleged defendant.
Several
Yes.
years. You don't
Sustained
need to
or
ask these
provided the answer, I can
clarifying
stand. Next question.
questions. It's asked and answered. You only need it once. It doesn't help. And it's driving me nuts.
So during your time, well, approximately how long were you staying around the alleged defendant before this incident on November 21st took place?
Couple weeks.
I don't know the
She
exact
she
time.
returned to Milwaukee a couple weeks before. She said,
I just answered your question. I don't know the exact time.
Were there any separations or gaps during that time?
Sustained.
all of this is irrelevant. Everyone needs a puppy sometimes. And I say puppy loosely. A puppy can be 17 years
At any
old.
time during these alleged
But
incidents,
surrogate puppies are
were you with
necessary.
someone other than Miss Corey?
Corey and Nick the day of the 21st, and then we separated and I met back up with them.
They've gone over this.
Any time during that day were you with anyone else besides those two that you just named?
It doesn't matter if those people
Mr.
didn't
Brooks, yeah.
witness this.
What about the alleged incident on the 20th?
I left with Miss Corey, and then she went a whole different
It was
direction, and I
just
went to
the
Frank
two
Park
of
and met up with
you
Mr. Brooks.
for the incident. At this point, it's just abusive.
Just want to say, Your Honor.
He's asking questions just to harass.
You were not drinking. Both of
Asked
those
and
days,
answered.
you cite the 20th or the 21st.
The 20.
Hold on. Mr. Brooks, under 90611, I'm stopping this cross-examination. You've asked the same question, multiple questions.
Over
multiple
and
times,
over and over.
And at this point, I'm going to declare
I
that
didn't
the
know.
opportunity to cross is now concluded.
I didn't know that.
It's a feedback loop.
Mr. Brooks, it's been asked and answered multiple times.
I
So
was
with that,
referring to
I'm going to
Alabama.
turn to the state to see if they have any redirect.
Some brief clarification.
Go ahead.
Ms. Patterson, after the parade incident, which took place after the video we saw, right?
Yes.
Okay. You remember meeting with Detectives Jessica Barron and Steve Guth that night?
Yes,
Okay. And you gave a statement to them that night, correct?
yes,
You gave a second statement to Detective Guth the next day. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Goof. TH,
So-
not goof,
Very briefly about
as in a
the first
Disney
statement,
dog.
The night of the 21st,
Mhm.
the night of the parade incident.
yes,
You told them about an incident that had happened between you and the defendant on November 20th. Is that right?
yes.
And you also told them
I
about
really think that's what he's
argument that you
doing.
had with
But the
defendant on
jury
the
sees it.
21st.
They're
Is that
they're
right?
not
Yes.
happy.
But you left out the part about any
Not that they're on
physical
camera,
violence
but
on
I
the
know they're not
21st. Is that
happy.
accurate?
Yes.
And then when you met with Detective
I'm glad
Guth,
though
your
that the
second
judge
statement,
ended
Yes.
the cross-examination before he got
that's
into,
when you confirmed
do you
that
know who the
violence
plaintiff is? Is the
with Mr.
plaintiff in
Brooks
the
on
room?
21st. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. Well, they seen my eye on the 21st when they came, so I
And took
did
a
let them
picture.
know about
And they've shown us the
the
picture.
incident on the 21st. I did. The next day, I let him know about the incident on the 20th. Is what happened.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
to make it better. Sorry.
That's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. You may step
Thank
down.
you, Your Honor.
Oh, he's mad. He wanted recross.
All right, and any reason to keep her under subpoena from the state?
No.
From the defense?
Yes.
He
you want a
wants
subpoena for
to
her?
direct
Her,
her.
to my understanding, I was supposed to.
All right, I'll take that up in a little bit. For now, I'd ask that she be maintained under the state subpoena until I can clarify that issue. All right, state have the next witness available.
Yes, we do.
He's mad. He's mad.
Mr. Brooks, please, before the next witness comes in, if my ladies and gentlemen of the jury want to take a quick moment to stand.
I mentioned that earlier, John. His objections yesterday were hearsay and relevance. And he'd object that the prosecution would ask a question, did you see this car? And he'd object hearsay, which it's not even in the realm of hearsay because it's his direct observation of an event. It's not an out of court statement. And so it's not even in the ballpark. But I think he's heard hearsay
you,
on
everyone.
legal
Please be
dramas,
seated.
so that's what he goes with. Which is why I said yesterday, I hope he reads what hearsay is. Only one of his objections
All right. The state
was
may call
close.
its next witness.
But
All right. Detective, please make your way to the witness stand.
As I
When you get
said
there, please
yesterday,
remain standing. Raise your right hand. and my
there
secretary
are
will raise
things
your hand.
that you'd think are hearsay, but there are a lot of
solemnly swear that the testimony
exceptions.
you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole
But
truth,
there's
and nothing but
actually
the truth,
some
so
things
help
that
you
are
God.
specifically
Thank you,
listed
sir.
as
Please be
not
seated.
hearsay. As in,
When
they're
you are
not
seated, if
exceptions,
you
they're
would
just
please
not
state your
hearsay.
first
And that's
last names
statements
for
of
the
party
record and
opponents,
spell both.
which is what that
Detective
was.
Stephen
So it
Guth.
wasn't hearsay.
Steven Guth.
Thank you. Go
Yep.
ahead, your witness.
Thank you. Detective, what do you do for a living?
But we're
I'm a
not going to
detective
do
for
the
the
Pee
city
Wee
of Waukesha
Herman
Police
thing.
Department.
How long have you worked?
You
for the
can,
police
but
department?
I'm not going
20
to.
years.
How long is it?
I've already waved my hands in the air
7 months.
enough,
Okay. Were you working as a detective on November
demonstrating the
22nd
detective.
of 2021?
Yes, I was.
On that date, did you meet with a person by the name of Erica Patterson?
Yes, I did.
What was the purpose of meeting with Miss Patterson?
I wanted to clarify her statement to me regarding a domestic related incident that had occurred.
And as part of that clarification, did you get into a squad car with Miss Patterson?
I did.
And what was the point of doing that?
I wanted to ride in the car with her since she was unfamiliar with the geography of the city, and so that she could point out to me specific directions on where she went with Mr. Brooks.
Could we have exhibit
That's
one up
smart
on the
of
screen
him.
for the jury, please, and for the witness?
Permission to publish exhibit 1. Granted, I'll go here for a moment.
It's already in evidence, exhibit 1. That's the map of the parade showing the location of police units and police cars and barricades, and also
Yes, please.
this incident to the north.
That's what you want?
It is.
All right, then permission to publish is granted.
Can we zoom in on the top right corner of this exhibit?
Top right is the location of this incident. If you're
Okay,
just
where
listening
did you
instead of
first-
watching the video, they're
where
not
did this
showing the exhibit right
Journey
now.
with Miss Phillips,
But we saw.
Patterson,
Oh,
excuse me.
now they are.
Miss Patterson begin.
Once I picked her up, we moved to Frame Park and we
That's
parked in the area that's
right by the staging area for the
close to
parade.
where that star is, where it says Frame Park.
In the top right corner.
Correct.
Okay. And where did you go from there?
From there, we traveled on Baxter. So the way that the frame park is here.
For once, it's not
and I
me
touch the screen.
coughing.
Do we have the ability to let the witness touch and
Yes.
mark?
Just let us know at what points we'll capture it, and then we can also print it at another location and if need be.
So we met generally in that area that's highlighted now in yellow. We traveled in this direction on Baxter.
Okay. And then what?
As we continue down Baxter,
That's
We got to the street
perpendicular
called
to the
Buckley.
north.
and then from Buckley,
Well,
made a right
northeast.
turn
It's a diagonal
and ended
street
up on Carina.
from the
I'll
staging
go back up.
area
Yeah,
street.
don't
And
move the
let's-
screen until we can capture it.
Let's capture there. And we probably need to,
If you saw the little number counting the percentage, that means it's done.
Exactly. And that's the danger of legal
we clear that
dramas.
now?
They're entertaining, but they
Let's
give
zoom out.
people an unrealistic
I'll refer. we'll get that printed
understanding
and
of
we'll have
the
that
legal
marked as
system.
1A.
now, from where you left off there, after you made that right turn onto Buckley, can you draw on the screen where you went next?
Yeah, so again, on Buckley, we did travel down Buckley to Carina.
No, notice he said
And then
on
on
Buckley,
Carina, we made a
we
left
did
turn,
travel. That's
traveling along
cop speak.
the river.
That's how they write
We
their
reached
reports.
Barstow.
That they don't write their reports in
And
plain
then
English.
from Barstow, we made a right turn, traveling up northwest Barstow
That they do a
the
more
way
active
to the Barstow Hill.
narrative.
Where it's
we
highlighted in
did
green there, up to
Travel
Barstow,
instead
Barstow
of
Hill.
we traveled.
And it's going to come off the map, but all the way up to Bidwell.
Okay. And did she indicate at what point you should turn around?
At Bidwell and northwest Barstow.
Did she indicate where?
That
she
takes
went
them
with
by
Mr.
the
Brooks
mobile
after
gas
that?
station and the
Well, she
hill
jumped out
they
of the car at
discussed
Bidwell and
yesterday
northwest Barstow.
and earlier this
happened?
morning.
According to Ms. Patterson at that point.
At that point, she started making her way back the same path, back to Frame Park. Again, because she was unfamiliar with the geography, she just used the same route that she just went.
Did she at any point mention a gas station on that route?
Yes, she did.
Do you see that gas station depicted on
it's
Exhibit 1?
Yes, I do.
Marked as the mobile
Tell us
gas
where it is.
station.
Yes, it's the mobile gas station highlighted with a star, and I'll circle it in that area.
Do we have a screen capture here?
Yes. The screen capture has been done. When we get that color print brought to the courtroom, that will be.
Area.
Do we have a screen capture here?
Yes. The screen capture has.
Well, that
been
was a bit of a glitch in the feed.
When we get that color print brought to the courtroom, that will be 1B.
And this map is you're familiar with Waukesha, right?
Yes,
This is an accurate map of Waukesha.
yes, it is.
And the markings that you've put on the screen here, that's an accurate representation of the route you took with Miss Patterson on November 22nd.
Yes, it is.
Move exhibits 1A and 1B into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes.
The objection noted, it's overruled. Exhibits 1A and 1B are received by the court.
That's all I have for this witness.
It's definitely a lot more comfortable
Mr.
for
Brooks, do you have
me
any questions for this
sitting
witness?
here without my leg on today, without the brim of the socket jammed into
Detective.
areas that shouldn't have hard objects jammed in.
Detective.
But it makes me
Come on.
feel lopsided.
You've been in law enforcement for over 20 years. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
At any time during your over 20 years of service, have you ever had any interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
The sovereign citizen nonsense.
Can you state for the record if the plaintiff is in court today?
Sovereign citizen nonsense. The plaintiff is the state of Milwaukee, or it's the state of Wisconsin.
Sustained.
Do you even know of the plaintiff?
Objection.
Sustained.
Ever spoken to the plaintiff?
Objection.
On what grounds?
Sustained.
On what grounds?
It's sustained. Next question.
It's been
That's what
objected
grounds,
to 3 times now for
Mr.
3
Brooks, you
different
have another question?
witnesses.
I do. I was just trying to follow the rules that you said by saying that an objection has to have a basis. So I'm
Unless
just-
it's self-evident to the court. It's sustained. Next question.
On what grounds, Your Honor?
Do you have another question? Otherwise, under 906.11, I will give the state an opportunity.
She's not
to
taking
ask
his
me
BS
redirect.
today.
Yes, I do have more questions.
Go ahead.
did the state or did the plaintiff touch you? Does the plaintiff sign your paychecks?
At any time did Erica Patterson report any domestic incident?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember the dates that she reported or date?
Yes.
He didn't ask what the dates were. He asked if he remembered the
At
dates.
any time
He
during
answered.
that report, did you find her to be untruthful?
How would he
No.
know? He's not a human lie detector.
Just 1 second.
Did you think she was credible? Maybe would be a question, but did you find her to be untruthful? What the hell does that mean?
I'm reading from the narrative of your report, and specifically the part where it says, what I learned from Erica Patterson was that when I spoke to her on the previous evening with Detective Barrett, she was not completely forthright with all of the information she had given.
Meaning it wasn't a complete narrative.
Correct.
That doesn't mean she
So it'd
lied.
also be fair to say that from the report that you wrote, that you're acknowledging that there was some untruth in the
No!
report reported to you.
No,
He
that's
says it
incorrect.
was incomplete.
When I spoke to her on the previous evening with Detective Barrett, she was not completely forthright. She
Asked and
said
answered.
What you learned was that she was not completely forthright. So
Asked
is
and
it fair to
answered.
say that there was some untruth to the
Asked
report?
and answered.
No.
He said no. But go ahead and ask it again, you know. Third time's the charm.
So why would that be in the report?
He didn't
For
say she
various
was
reasons.
untruthful.
The most common reason is that when domestic victims report crimes that happen to them, a lot of times they're very afraid of their
This
abuser,
is
and so they don't always
bad
give all
for
details.
Mr.
Because if
Brooks.
they do give all details about what happened to them, they feel like they might have something happen to them in the future.
This is
due to
bad
some
for
abuser.
Mr. Brooks. He needs to let this go.
So would it be fair to say that you could have just stated what you just said in your report?
He didn't need
did state
to.
Not in the report. Is it fair to say that obviously you've been in law enforcement for a very long time?
Is that a question?
Would it be fair to say that it could have been reported in the way that you just stated instead of stating in your report that there was untruthfulness?
He didn't say there was
I did
untruthfulness.
state untruthfulness in my report. If you further read into the report, I state what I just stated.
This is so damaging for him. I don't know what he thinks he's trying to do here. I mean, I know he's trying to say the detective's not credible, but
So would it be fair
it's
to
not
say,
helping
though,
him.
that the information wasn't completely forthright?
It was incomplete.
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, would it be fair to say that there was in fact only one incident?
He was
No.
He wasn't a direct witness of the incident. He had 2 incidents reported to him. That's the best of his knowledge.
And
That
would you be basing that, to the best of your knowledge, would you be basing that answer, the last answer, on hearsay?
That's a legal
No.
determination. What is hearsay?
So you would be basing your answer on eyewitness account
I'll check that relevance for
grounds.
Relevance, he said.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question, or you can rephrase it.
Would it be fair? I don't know how I can rephrase that without asking it the same way.
Well, then don't ask it.
Just give me a second, if I may.
He's got a few gears missing,
At
turning
any
in his
time,
head.
During your report or time spent with Miss Patterson, did she state where she may have been on November 20th of 2021?
Yes.
Do you recall what that was? Where, what she said?
Frame
I
Park.
recall what she said, yes.
To the best of your knowledge, do you believe that she was being truthful?
Yes.
I'm just going to advise the jury that ultimately it's the jury's determination of
Exactly.
credibility that matters. And you heard me read an instruction yesterday. That's obviously the instruction you'll follow ultimately in the jury room.
And I said that yesterday. He
To the best of your knowledge, do you?
he said that answer wasn't credible. That answer wasn't believable,
any
or something
injuries
like that. And it's like that's for the
on the
jury to
first reported
decide. It's
incident?
not for him
Yes.
or for the
Do you
witness.
recall what they were?
Yes.
And do you recall any injury on the reported incident from the day of the parade?
Yes.
Do you remember what they were?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Can you state on the record what they were?
On which day?
I'm probably better in the background anyway, John.
Her mouth was injured due to being slapped in the mouth.
Do you can you recall for any reason
He really
why
is
that would
doing
not
a
be
great job
report?
for the prosecution.
It is.
You as a defendant
To the best of your
cross-examining, you
knowledge,
don't want the witness to be constantly repeating damaging evidence.
can you say where in the report that
But
would be?
in this
'Cause
feedback
I don't
loop,
see it in the,
we just hear it over and over. Yes, you hit
report
me.
that I have
Yes,
here before me.
you hit her. Yes, you gave her a black eye.
You asking me which report states that she was injured in the mouth? Are you asking if it was reported to me that she was injured in the mouth?
No, I'm not. I'm
Then ask
asking
a
you,
clear question.
why is there no injuries reported for that incident, alleged
He
incident?
said there is.
It was reported to me that she was injured in the mouth by being slapped on the 20th.
Are you aware that that was not testified to?
No.
objection
Hold on.
hearsay.
What grounds would that be hearsay?
Mr.
Your Honor?
Brooks, it's up for the jury to determine the truthfulness of anything that's said or testified to in court.
Okay,
He was not present for any other testimony, so it would not be proper for him to comment on that. Next question.
And besides, it would be proper for him to say, it was reported to me that she was hit in the mouth. Whether
Would it be
she
fair to say
testified
that
in court
the
that she was hit in the
reported
mouth or not,
alleged incident
number one, he was not allowed to hear her testimony. But he can testify from his personal knowledge. It was reported to
Would
me
it be
that she was
fair
hit
to
in the
say
mouth.
that the reported alleged incident from the 20th is very, very, very vague in your report? Would that be fair to say? And by vague, I mean there's literally 3 sentences.
I don't have the report in front of me. If you're
I have it in
referring
front
to
of me.
vagueness, that's why I went back on the 22nd to interview her again to clarify information.
And so there's a subsequent, less vague report. And besides,
So,
what are you
the
aware that it's
22nd
vague? What? That's an
And this
opinion.
is your report I'm reading from. It says, due to
It's
the
not
influx of
appropriate
information, we were
for a
unable
witness
make
to give his
sense of all the
opinion,
information
unless he's an
presented.
expert
Fair to
witness,
say.
but
Correct.
So it would be also fair to say that that would basically state that there were some things you weren't sure about.
Yes.
You also say in your report that you had learned that there were 2 other individuals that may have been involved in the incident. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Do you remember the names of the 2 individuals?
Nick and Corey.
Yes.
Would you state on the record what the names of the other 2 individuals were?
You don't need to state
Corey
on the
Runkle.
record.
And the other individual's first name was
testifying,
Nick. I don't remember.
So
his
it's
last
on the
name.
record. But sovereign citizens love the on the record. Let the record
Did,
show.
Corey Runkle in any way report anything about the incident to you?
Yes.
Which incident? Hold on, which incident are we talking about?
From November the 21st of 2021.
Thank you. With that clarification, are you able to answer?
Not to me directly.
Do you recall if you had learned of any information about what Corey Runkle might have said to any other law enforcement?
The hearsay.
Yes.
Do you recall what that was?
Yes.
Not that I'd object as prosecution
Would you
because
like to state on
this
the
is
record what
damaging.
that was that you may have learned?
That you pushed
I learned
her
that she was with Erica Patterson on the 21st, on November 21st.
and tried to run them
2021,
down with your Ford Escape.
when Erica Patterson was involved with a domestic incident. She responded to help her friend.
This is not
Do you
helpful
recall,
to anyone but the prosecution.
Learning if Corey Runkle was with Erica Patterson on November 20th of 2021?
I don't think Corey Runkle was with Erica Patterson on the 20th.
At least not at the incident, which Erica Patterson testified. She was there previously, but they separated, and it was just Mr. Brooks and Miss Patterson for the incident when he slapped her in the mouth.
You stated in the report that you were with Erica Patterson to kind of basically you took her on a drive to pretty much retrace her steps. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
At any time, did any incident about November the 20th of 2021 come into your conversations with Erica Patterson?
You talking about during the drive.
During the drive. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
No, I just want to make sure that the question's clear. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I believe we did talk about it, both incidents from the 20th and the 21st.
Do you recall what was said?
Yes.
You smacked her.
Do you recall putting that into your report?
I recorded our conversation. I don't know if I put every detail of our whole recording in the report.
Would it
In
be,
fact, I know I didn't. So not every detail from our recorded conversation is in that report.
Ooh, let's hear the
report is a
recorded
summary.
conversation. That's going to be painful.
for any reason to your knowledge, why would details of an incident not be reported accurately?
He didn't say it wouldn't be recorded accurately.
It's also
He
vague.
just said it's not necessarily
best of your
100%
knowledge.
complete.
Why is that?
If she said, "I was
conversation
eating a
of
Subway
you are not
sandwich,"
in your report at all.
that wouldn't be relevant. So
States the evidence.
it was said, but it
Sustained.
wouldn't be in.
Just 1 second. Sorry, Your Honor, I got tons of paperwork.
This is painful. But it was expected.
1 second, Your Honor. 1 second.
And it's going to be even more painful when it's physical victims from the parade. That, I mean, when he
And
cross-examines,
you stated that you
Well,
interviewed
they're not-
Ms. Patterson on
the
multiple
prosecution
days.
has said they're not going to call the
Yes.
band members because they're teenagers, but they'll have the band leader.
Both of those times.
And that's going to
that
be heartbreaking. Or the
you
surviving
interviewed
dancing
Patterson.
grannies, or
Did the reporting ever deviate?
Mr. Brooks under 906.11. You need to clarify your question.
move on.
It's ambiguous. It's
What- what I'm-
confusing.
What I'm getting at by that question is, did what Ms. Patterson said change from interview to interview?
No.
So at any time during your interview, did you learn less or learn more?
I learned more in my
That's
second interview.
not a
So it would be fair to say that
change. It's an addition.
the
It's
information
not
you learned changed.
contradictory.
That'd be fair to say?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled. He may answer.
It did not change. I just learned more information.
More information about what alleged incident, the 20th, the 21st?
Both.
Both,
Jesus.
honestly.
I'm
Both.
sorry.
Both, honestly.
So would it be fair to say was it 2 interviews that you did or 3?
2.
So with both interviews, you continue to learn things that you didn't know from the previous interview.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Would it be fair to say that
None of this would be fair to say. It's
would it be fair to say that just 1 second, Your Honor. Trying to find my list there. Detective Bruce. Report, if I may. To the best of your knowledge, did Erica Patterson give any report to any other law enforcement that you were aware of?
No.
So to the best of your knowledge, you were the only detective that interviewed Ms. Patterson?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
These
To the
clarifying
best of your knowledge,
questions
were you the only one that
are
interviewed Ms.
maddening.
Patterson?
Same objection.
Sustained.
I mean, does
At
he
any time,
expect
did you
if
learn
he asks it
anything
4 times, it's
about the
going
alleged
to
incidents
change?
that Ms. Patterson claimed from any other law enforcement?
Objection. Same reason.
Sustained.
At any time were you, or at any time did you view the video footage from White Rock School?
Yes.
Do you remember what you saw in those videos?
That's the video we saw
Yes.
during Miss Patterson's testimony this morning.
You stayed on the record what you saw?
That's
My
an
house is
awfully
still up.
broad.
I'm gonna advise the witness not
question.
to answer. That video is in evidence. It will speak for itself. And his understanding of what's in there, at least at this point, is not relevant.
Can you say what was the date
The
of the video that you
21st.
saw?
November 21st, 2021.
Did you see any video from the other alleged incident from November 20th?
No video
See the relevance. to
is in evidence of that. And
Sustained.
besides, to my knowledge, he hasn't been charged with the incident on the 20th. He's charged with the incident on the 21st, right before the parade.
Do
I could be
know
wrong,
if
but
there
I-
might have been any video from the alleged incident on November 20th?
Same objection.
Sustained.
He says he hasn't seen it. He doesn't
It's
know.
not relevant.
May I ask how is it not
Next
relevant?
question.
It's
Was
not
charged
relevant.
for the 20th, sir. It's not relevant. I've given you leeway to ask questions at this point under 90611. Move on.
Just so I'm clear, you have never had NT interaction with the plaintiff.
NT interaction?
Sustained.
You've never seen the plaintiff.
Sustained.
Never spoken to the plaintiff.
Objection.
Not only is this
Just so I'm clear,
irrelevant
you have never
and
had NT
It-
interaction with the plaintiff.
it's asked and answered.
Sustained.
You've never seen the plaintiff.
Objection.
Sustained.
Never spoken to the plaintiff.
Objection.
Sustained.
Never seen. Do you see the plaintiff in court today?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did the plaintiff go to your
Do
birthday
you know
party?
if there is a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
The state of
Sustained.
Wisconsin. Prosecutor's biting his lip. He's
Have you had any prior knowledge of the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right, Judge, do your thing. Do your thing. End it.
Would it be fair to say that
He's trying to
you know-
figure out
you do
another way
not
to
know
ask
of
the
any
same
plaintiff in this
question.
matter?
Objection.
Sustained.
On grounds? What grounds?
Same
Under
grounds.
90611, I'm declaring the cross-examination now closed. Do you have any redirect?
Good
for this
job,
witness?
Judge.
Briefly, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Detective, when you reported that Erica Patterson had been less than completely forthright with you, what did she leave out the first time you spoke with her?
She left out the incident that happened to her on November 21st, 2021.
The incident.
I'm
where
waiting for
she
him to
accused
bring
Mr.
up
Brooks of
the
punching her?
UCC.
Okay.
Do you know the
testified on
secured
cross-examination
party
that in your
creditor,
general
yeah.
experience, victims of domestic violence do not report 100% of the details all the time.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
It's not
Wow.
hearsay.
He hasn't asked a question yet.
Grounds for the.
He can ask this question. This witness testified about his experience based on a question you asked, so.
Which is not
the
hearsay.
Redirect is appropriate.
I just say that every situation is different, Your Honor. Which we
You're
do know
attempting to
that.
testify, so no, you may not say that. The jury will strike that comment made by Mr. Brooks. You'll have an opportunity if you so.
He
choose
can
to
argue
testify
in
at a
his
later
closing
point
arguments.
in this trial. The
He
state
can't
may
argue
ask
right now.
this question.
Thank you. Did Erica Patterson provide to you a specific reason for her situation? why
Oh,
she was not
commentary.
100%
Wow.
Forthright with you.
Yes.
What was that
It's
reason?
that Like
was
Anselmo, the
extremely
frauditor.
afraid of Mr. Brooks.
I
Wow.
have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Detective, you may step down. Any reason to keep this witness under subpoena from the state?
Not from the state.
Anything from Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
All right, I'll take that up later and reserve that until I can.
He's going to
review that with
struggle
the parties. All right, this would be an excellent opportunity.
with
to
direct
take a
examination of
mid-morning
them.
break. It's 10:49, about 15 minutes. All rise for the jury. We are in
What's he
recess.
laughing at? That he's such a. Ugh.
Good idea.
And I'm also going to take a mid-morning break. The judge had the right idea. I'll keep this stream running though until lunchtime and then start a separate afternoon stream, but I'm gonna just step away for All right, I'm back. I realize it sounds strange, but just like sitting too long can be painful, a full bladder causes pain in my non-existent foot. I don't know how that happens, but the human body is weird. So, that cross-examination, both of those cross-examinations, went pretty much how I expected. The direct examinations, he actually didn't object quite as much as I expected, but his objections were just as bad as yesterday, the few he made. But he needs to let go. He needs to get off his feedback loop, and he needs to stop making it worse. Because he's just giving the witnesses more and more opportunities to say, yes, you hit her. Yes, she told me you hit her. Yes, I saw her black eye. Unless you have something to contradict that, to cross-examine him, you don't want to give him the opportunity to bring it up over and over and over. And then, like I said, as far as the sovereign citizen nonsense, he needs, if he's going to do it, get more creative. Ask him if he knows about your straw man or something. Ask him about the UCC. I mean, it's all going to be objected to and sustained, but get off the, do you know the plaintiff? Have you ever met the plaintiff? Is the plaintiff in the room? If you're going to have nonsense, don't have repetitive nonsense. Ask him if he's ever been to the postal court. The Law Talk with Mike had a little clip of the Russell J. Gould postmaster court, which, my God, those guys they're nutty. I'm assuming all of you are here because of sovereign citizens, and you've seen the Hawaii wizard in court that it has made the rounds of every channel except mine, covering sovereign citizens, where he comes in with his magic staff and his wizard robe, and I'm Darrell Brooks, plaintiff, or whatever. I mean, it's all ridiculous. But at least if you're going to do your sovereign citizen nonsense over and over and over, be creative. Don't be repetitive. And here I am being repetitive in my complaints. But in his arguments with the judge, before the jury came in, he did do the I'm here by special appearance as an intervener, non-party intervener, third-party intervener. That's what he said. And I accept these documents for value. Which is standard sovereign citizen nonsense, but do you guys have any questions while we're waiting for the court to return? I'm curious who the next witness will be, if it's Officer Guth or the friend Nick, or basically if the next witness is still about the first incident with the ex, or if we get into the actual parade, which, like I said, that's going to be traumatic. That's a good point. He downloaded it. I'm assuming when you say the soft sit beta, that's not in the manosphere. I'm an alpha, you're a beta, but more in the beta tested. And I'd say he's not on the beta version. He's still on the soft sit alpha version. It's not fully developed. It's not even to the alpha. It's unreleased. It's still with the developers, and they're struggling. They only have the first stage mapped out. Exactly. Pre-release. It's not even close to alpha. Some of his photos I've seen, he does look like he would be a good video game villain. And I'm not even talking about if I didn't have knowledge of what he was accused of, I'd still say he'd make a good template for a video game villain, because there were some looks he was giving yesterday that he looked absolutely sinister. He was This was while he was in the other courtroom, and he was standing up, leaning over the counsel table with his head down and his eyes looking forward, so they were angled up and out of his forehead. And if looks could kill, it was just pure malice and evil. And he does look more dangerous shaved. I actually think it's been smart on his part leaving the mask on. And he had, at least yesterday, he did object to taking the mask off to identify for one of the witnesses. But I think leaving the mask on helps him, because the jury doesn't see half his face. So they don't see him smirking. They don't see what he's doing. They still see his eyes, but it's almost like we were joking yesterday, he needs, instead of his objection sign, he needs to get a bag over his head with objection on it. And in some ways that would help him. If the jury's not looking at his eyes, they're not judging him on what they see. And obviously they're supposed to judge him based on the evidence presented by the witnesses and the exhibits. His questions and his antics aren't evidence per se, but it's still going to impact how the jury accepts the proper evidence. It does impact his credibility, his likability. And this is why even if defendants aren't in custody wearing orange jumpsuits most of the time, they're given the opportunity to wear a suit, but that you see in other court proceedings, defendants showing up in a t-shirt and shorts, and it has an impact. I'm not saying for a traffic ticket you need to show up in a suit and tie. I do as an attorney if I'm defending someone, even for a traffic ticket. But showing up looking slovenly makes an impact. I remember one time, this wasn't in the courtroom, it was in the courthouse at the clerk's window. And the guy in front of me was there to make the monthly payment on his fine. And he was wearing a t-shirt with the entire front was a marijuana leaf. And this was in the West Jordan Municipal Court here in Utah. Medicinal marijuana is barely legal in Utah. It has major restrictions on it. But this was before that went into effect, so marijuana was strictly illegal. And sure, having a pot leaf on your shirt isn't illegal, but it makes an impact in court, even if it's at the court clerk. And it's not necessarily circumstantial evidence because once again, it's
Things before we bring the jury back
by a
out,
legal
so we are
standard,
on
it's
the
not
record.
evidence because it's not entered as testimony.
Mr.
But
Brooks, I was
it is
provided with information that your
circumstantial
test result was
observations by the
hand-delivered
jury.
to
I think
you,
would be a more
forwarded. Did you receive that?
appropriate way to characterize it.
I was made aware of I
Exactly.
didn't look at it
Your
yet.
shirt says otherwise.
Do you have it with you?
I don't know
It
if
is. It's
that
in my
guy
paperwork
in
somewhere.
West Jordan
All
was
right, I
there
need you to,
for a pot
locate it.
charge, but it didn't
And
help.
open it up, please.
But in
That's
Mr. Brooks's
the reason
case,
why that would
his
be.
orange jumpsuit,
Mr. Brooks, you raised this issue
Says otherwise.
yourself, and I'd like to know the result.
I would too, but I was kind of in the middle of preparing for my defense. So
Mr. Brooks, find the piece of paper and open it up and read it, please.
even if
I
he
don't
brings the
consent to
subject
being
up,
talked to
he
in
has
that
to be
fashion.
obstructive.
Your lack of consent is noted for the record. Please find the piece of paper, open it up, and please read it.
I will not consent to that, Your Honor. Or do I agree to that, Your Honor? I do not.
Your
Mr. Brooks,
consent
then I'm going to advise
is
the
not
Sheriff's
needed.
Department to find the piece of paper and hand it to me so that I can read it. So
And
that those are your two options.
what would be the basis for that, Your Honor?
Mr. Brooks, this is an issue that you raised, and I need
He
to bring
raised
it
the
to
issue that
finality
he's in
and
the
know what
plague
test result is.
protocols.
Okay, with all due respect, it was a motion that I raised.
All right,
for-
I'm going to clear the courtroom. We're going to go off the record, and we're going to find that piece of paper, and I'm going to
This is
address it when that's done.
ridiculous. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the personality disorder he's been diagnosed with is the obstructive, the obstructive defiant disorder, or whatever it's called. I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess, knowing he's been diagnosed with some personality disorder. I'm assuming that one, whatever it's called, is classified as a personality disorder. Let's see. There are I guess narcissistic personality disorder fits too. Looking at a list of obsessive compulsive, I don't know. I don't, just from my understanding, which it is limited, I don't see sort of tics, the repetitive, knocking on the desk 3 times, but getting into that feedback loop, asking the same question over and over and over. Would certainly give me cause to question, I think is maybe the right way to say it. Let's see, it's 11:11 right now in Wisconsin, 11:12. I wonder if we get an entire witness before the lunch break, or if he's been removed from the courtroom during this kerfuffle. Going back, the incomplete video game still in development. There's that breakdown where it just goes into the feedback loop, and I think maybe we need to give him your name. He's now static. He's and I realize there are some people who enjoy this, as in enjoy being the participant. I don't know if you've seen the Kim Blandino trial. It's admittedly a much smaller deal than this, but sovereign citizen adjacent vexatious litigant in Las Vegas. It was fully covered on Law Talk with Mike and Artie's Corporate Fiction, and live streamed by our Nevada judges. And his argument for being granted a personal recognizance bond is, of course I'll show up, Your Honor. I enjoy coming to court. And I wonder if he realizes the longer he keeps this going, the longer he's in court instead of in jail or in prison. And so causing disruptions, being defiant, keeps him in the courtroom, and it's less unpleasant defending himself and arguing with the judge than being in his cell. But it could also be that he's just a defiant person and he can't help himself. It's not an act. It's not put on. It's not a ploy. But if it's, I don't know which of those is worse, though, if he's doing it out of enjoyment or out of obstruction, because either one, he still comes across as a dick. And it's frustrating me because it means I have to sit here and talk for extended periods instead of commenting on dumb things he says in the moment. How dare he make me be a live streamer on my own live stream? Can you believe the audacity? It's just, how dare he? This is, I'd say this is taking a lot longer than it should. But once again, they had to remove the jury and then do whatever they're doing as far as the test results. And then once they finish, they've got to bring the jury back. And there's several minutes of transit time sandwiching the main event. But the main event shouldn't take that long unless he's physically hidden the test result or actively obstructing, since the judge told him, if you don't provide it, the bailiff will take it for her to read. And once again, I've said it. I'm going to go into my feedback loop, but I really admire this judge. I think she has done a fantastic job. She's creating a full and complete record. She is giving him enough rope to hang himself. It's not her intention to give him rope to hang himself, but if it's his desire to do so, she's allowing it. But she's reining him in from the more disruptive and irrelevant stuff. But she's really doing her best to make this appeal proof. And the prosecutors are too. This first thing, before the jury even came into the courtroom, the lead prosecutor says, I want it on the record again today. The defendant is in an orange jumpsuit instead of a suit and tie. It's by his own choice. He's had the opportunity to change into a suit. Just fully developing the record every day, every time. And it may seem repetitive at times, but they really are trying to make certain that appeals are laughed out of court. Which is important because I'm sure his first appeal, he's going to have the opportunity to have an attorney. But I don't know if he'll use it, but I'm sure he's going to be appealing his inevitable sentence for years and years and years and years. One of the advantages of being an amputee is I can do a long distance karate chop. I mean, then I have to hop around after that, but I can take off my leg and throw it at someone. The projectile karate chop. I've never done it because I showed my leg towards the beginning of the stream. It costs about as much as a mid-sized Mercedes, brand new, so I don't want to damage it by doing a long-distance karate chop. But I could. He might be deserving of it. That's true. I guess it would really hurt then if it were a long-distance karate chop, if it was someone with a hook that, that could be a long-distance karate stab. It would be, it could get intense. It could get ugly. At this point, I'm assuming they've had plenty of time for the transit sandwich. So I'm assuming he's being very obstructive and needs that karate chop. It's once again, I wish, even that they go off the record, I wish they left the camera on screen so we could see the action, even if we're not hearing it. Although she did say she's going to clear the courtroom, which I'm assuming means more than removing the jury. That could mean she removed the observers in the gallery, and so that's good to hear. My advice would be to keep it that way, although that's not legal advice. Oh, I get it. From The Fugitive, I didn't do it. It was the one-armed man. That was a terrible Harrison Ford voice, but I make no claims about being a voice artist. That was a pretty good movie, though. That was enjoyable. It's my understanding. I mentioned yesterday that if I belong to any fandom, it's Star Wars. Apparently, Harrison Ford hates Star Wars. He wanted to kill off Han Solo as far back as Empire Strikes Back, and the only way they got him to return for the sequels was a truckload of money. It was a Brinks truck, and probably the assurance that they were killing him in that first sequel movie. Apparently, George Lucas tried not to cast him as Indiana Jones. Which, he has a lot more great movies than just his major franchises. But George Lucas tried to avoid casting him as Indiana Jones because he didn't want to sort of be known for only casting Harrison Ford in his movies. And this is what I read. I don't know the validity of it, but this was, I think, just after the first season of Magnum PI. if I'm getting my TV shows right. But he tried to cast Tom Selleck as Magnum PI, and he asked the TV network to release Selleck from his contract so he could film Indiana Jones. And it wasn't even to release him, it was to not renew the contract because it was just for that first season. And this was before Tom Selleck wasn't a massive star yet. But they said, "Oh, you want him? We're re-upping him for multiple years," and so he ended up taking him for yeah. Those are the best Star Wars movies. Although I'd put Rogue One up as very good. The prequels have their problems, but I'll watch them. The sequels are definitely problematic. But I would, if I were to say they're the only Star Wars, I'd say they're the only Star Wars movies. Because there are actually some very good TV shows. I realize the Clone Wars isn't everyone's cup of tea. I think it's
Excuse everyone
great.
from the courtroom, take a recess.
But
so
Rebels
that
is one of the
test result
best.
could be obtained, and if necessary, by reasonable force.
And then The Mandalorian, and
It's my understanding there was,
like I said,
some
I'm
type of
enjoying
situation or altercation
Andor
between
right
Mr.
now.
Brooks and the deputies.
Altercation.
Ultimately,
That-
though, I
that
think
was
he
my guess.
taken into the bullpen. He was brought back out, but it was very clear to me that he was upset. I think understandably so, but
I was
needed to
right.
make a record of what was being done, including that I have obtained the test result. So there's an accurate record in this case related to the motion that was raised previously by Mr. Brooks. I want Mr. Brooks to know that I am not removing him from when the jurors are brought back in. It was just simply because he was upset. He was very loud when I walked into the courtroom before going on back on the record. He was yelling about his constitutional rights being violated. I advised him
He's the one that
if
brought
there was
up
any
the
type
plague.
of use of force that he
So-
wanted to complain about, he could certainly do that through the proper channels with the sheriff's department. But just given
The judge
his
is doing
state
a
of
great
agitation
job.
and my need to make a record, I had him taken to the other courtroom. He is currently muted. I do not intend to go forward with additional testimony. Ultimately, I'm going to take an early lunch break because of this, but I will make a record of the following. I have the result. I am going to scan it, have my clerk scan it. It will be filed as confidential, though. It won't be available to the public, but it's there for appellate purposes. But I can confirm that the test result for COVID-19 was negative. And again, I required the sheriff's department to provide that result.
That
to
means
me,
the trial can keep
and
going
it was,
forward.
and it will
after
remain
lunch.
under seal. I realize I'm disclosing that result, but I feel obligated to do that given the motion that was raised 2 days ago by
And because it impacts his
Mr.
ability to
Brooks.
provide a defense.
Again, I do intend to take an early lunch. So that will hopefully give Mr. Brooks an opportunity, if he so chooses, to review the result himself. It was put in front of him. I did see that he either shoved it or tossed it or just dismissed it. It looked like it went on the floor when it was put in front of him, but we'll certainly have the deputies give that to him again. During the recess for lunch, Mr. Brooks will also be given the opportunity to change into street clothes if he so chooses. But when we come back, he will be in this courtroom. I agree. Mr. Brooks was making a couple of statements about how he was abiding by the rules and being respectful, things of that nature. I agree. He's
until he
done
causes
an
an
excellent
incident.
job while in court here this morning. He's been respectful of the rules. He made some early on. I let him, make his objections or lack of consent. He did that respectfully. When I said I was moving on, he generally was able to do that. We were able to get through 2 witnesses. He was able to follow along, ask cogent, clear,
She's making it clear for the record.
responsive and articulate
He's been
objections.
fully
He was able to elicit
competent.
information from the witnesses.
He hasn't been good at
regarding either
giving his
their
defense, but he's
memory,
been
their credibility,
competent in participating in
and
giving a
other
defense.
things.
So
Generally speaking, he's been able to competently represent himself and provide, again, solid cross-examination this morning. So I'm going to give him an opportunity to hopefully settle back in and to come back here when we return from lunch. So with that, we are in recess. Probably come back at 1 o'clock. Since it's
Ah.
only 11:30 and we'll take the full 90 minutes for lunch.
hour and a half.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Woohoo. All right. So back at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock here. I'm going to go take my lunch break. Stop this stream. Like yesterday, I'll come back with a afternoon part 2 separate stream. Try to come. I'll aim for a couple minutes before court starts. So noon for me. I'll try for 11:55 ish. But and hope to see you back here for the afternoon. So thanks for hanging out this morning. I'll see you in a little bit.